What's up, guys? It's Monocraftsman Monday.
Monday. Do you guys like that? Let us know. It feels weird.
Nobody likes it.
Yeah.
It's fine.
That's the point, John. We do it because they don't like it. This week we have Tom Reber from the Contractor Fight. If you guys don't know him from social media, his podcast, The Contractor Fight, or YouTube, he is a contractor coach, which we don't really get into him being a coach. We talk about really what drove him to that profession, which was driven by failure time and time again, and really just wanting to give back and do something for humanity, really, is what he said.
Yeah, and a lot of what was driven, a lot of decisions he made were so that he could have a career or a football coaching career. And then also, he's a big advocate for TikTok.
I think he also said he learned a lot of this from having his face kicked in.
Well, I think it's also the fact that he thinks that not enough guys value their time and their money.
Right.
They value the craft over that, which I think we've all been culprits of it.
And
Absolutely.
TikTok.
Cue the banjo. So what's up? What's up in your world?
Oh man, I'll tell you, there's a lot going on in my world. So you can see me right now. I got a little Marine Corps boot band here.
Yep.
And been wearing this for about 3 months because my oldest son is Marine Corps boot camp, and
Awesome.
He just graduated on June 12th. So he's officially a jarhead, and they, because of the whole stupid Corona stuff, they canceled all the leave. They normally get 10 days to come home and show off. And they closed the graduation. We couldn't go to that. They canceled his leave, and they bussed him right up to Camp Pendleton to start School of Infantry.
Wow.
So right now he's probably out in the field doing some cool shit. So there you go.
What's the is there has anything changed as far as like boot camp and anything for them as far as with COVID and whatnot?
There's they were doing some social distancing to some degree when they were in formations. They were a little farther apart. The parents, they give you a Facebook page, for your kids to go through, and every now and then they'll post some pictures. So we saw a couple times they had masks on and stuff, but I think it was more, that was probably just the PR thing they were doing, when the photographers are out there. So
yeah,
That's terrible that you couldn't do graduation.
yeah, it was a bummer. It, I got out of the Marines a long time ago, and it was just cool to he was in the same place in San Diego I was for boot camp, same parade deck, all the same stuff. And I was looking forward to going out there, but we're super proud of him. And so that's going on. Let's see, my other son. So I have 3 kids. All 3 were adopted. And so the one I just told you about,
awesome.
We got him when he was about the size of a football. He was a day old. And he's from the Atlanta area. And then about when he was 5
For a day.
He was
from Atlanta for a day.
For a day. Well, we ended up having to stay down there for a little over a month, but while the paperwork was done. But then when he was about 5, we went to China for a couple weeks, got my daughter. She's now 15. And then I guess probably around the time that she was 5, we went to Haiti and got my 3rd kid, who's 2 months younger than my son. So I have 2 20-year-old boys. They're like 2 months apart. One's from Haiti, one's from Atlanta. And the one from Haiti, he just started, he graduated high school about a year ago. And then he's 2 weeks ago now, I think he got hired kind of as the new guy on an HVAC crew. So he's learning the trade. He went to little community college HVAC trade program here, which is kind of funny because he's like, yeah, I don't really know if I learned anything, but that's but it was good for him just to kind of wet his toe a little bit. So yeah, we got a lot going on. What else, man? Things are humming along here. We got
what about so when you got out of the Marines? First off, thank you. But when you got out of the Marines, did you get into? Were you a contractor originally? How do you get into, like, obviously I'm jumping way into Contractor Fight, but how did you go from Marine to yelling at us on social media that we're not making enough money?
Yeah. Oh man. I grew up outside of Chicago in a town called Wheaton, Illinois, and no BS here. I literally lived on like the other side of the tracks,
Mm-hmm.
and there was like Wheaton that had the money, and then there was where we lived. And my dad, he was a seal coater and did asphalt for a number of years, and then he got into tile. He was actually a really good tile guy. My uncle is a painting contractor. My grandfather's a painting contractor. Uncles were all in the trades, and I had spent my whole life doing everything I could to not be in the trades, because every contractor I knew was tired at the end of the day. They were dirty, and none of them really made any money.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love them all, respect them all, work their butts off. But when I look, I'm like, why would I want that? And at the same time, I'm 50. And so at the same time, we were being just preached to that if you don't go to college, you're a loser. And that was a tough spot for me because I didn't want to be a contractor, and I was terrible in school. I actually rode the short bus for 2 years in grade school. I was in like a special ed class and stuff, and had a lot of head trash around just my intelligence, and for many years thought I was stupid. And the only thing that kept me in school, honestly, was football. I just love the game. I love being around the guys, and so I played ball. And
Let me pause you for a second. I'm going to pause you because that I always hated that, the reference that if you weren't going to go to college, that's where you end up in the trades. And it was always, and this was how vocational school was kind of portrayed to me when I went into vocational high school, is that it was for the dumb kids. It was for the kids that, weren't going to go off to go to college. And it was so they could learn a skill so they could be useful. And I always hated that. And you just made that reference on how you put yourself in a bad spot, because at that time you had these two paths that you could choose from. You could either be a contractor or go to college, and neither one of you didn't want to be a contractor, and you said you were quote unquote not smart enough for college.
Well, what's funny is I didn't believe it. When I say this now, it's like, was I living under a rock or something? But it never crossed my mind that I could be a contractor, that I could own a business. It never crossed my mind. I always felt like if I was going to be in the trades, I was going to be doomed to just being an employee in the trades for my whole life. And I mean, I'm trying to think back. I don't think I was probably 30 or 32 years old before it ever crossed my mind to start my own business. And so, and a lot of it, I just think I thought you had to be like super smart to be able to do it or something. And I just didn't trust myself. No, not at all. Look at us. And so, but the trades were always portrayed as a fallback option. It was good. It'd be a good option to have a trade under your belt in case, real life doesn't work out. That's how it was always presented to me. And so, I did everything I could. I in fact, I went to college for a semester, played football, Division III football down in Quincy, Illinois. And after football season, I dropped out because my grades were so bad. I was a terrible student. I went and built decks through the winter for a buddy of mine, my uncle's friend, a guy named Gary. And I think they were trying to send a message to me that I had more potential in my life than just digging post holes, because they made me do it all throughout the winter in Chicago by hand. And so the spring came, and I joined the Marine Corps. And then when I got out of the Corps 4 years later, 1992, what year were you guys born, man? Were you guys even born then?
86.
86. 86. I graduated high school 87. So there you go.
It's a good year.
Yeah. So I got out of the Marines, and I went on my dad at the time was doing industrial flooring. Like they'd go into like Nabisco or these big plants and lift up all the machinery, and they'd rip out these old floors, and I'd be running 1,000-pound or 800-pound, whatever, Georgia buggies full of mud all day, back and forth. And it was always like a quarter mile where we had to mix from where we had to dump it. And, I did that for a few months, and then I moved back to Chicago, ended up working for my uncle, who I grew up working for. He's a painting contractor, and ran one of his crews for a few years. And then ended up selling windows somehow. I just was like, you have these times in your life where, something's just poking at your heart going, hey, and so when I say this, I'm not minimizing anyone that wants to work in the trades with their hands full. I have a ton of respect for that, but I just knew for me, I was starting to discover that the number one thing that was important to me is on this planet is I want to have an impact. And I just felt that there were other ways that I could have an impact, which led me to a sales job and another sales job. So I sold carpet for about a day and a half. I was terrible at it. And then I got a window sales job, and it was one of those vinyl window replacement companies where you got to go in and lie to people. And, I led the company in sales my first 3 months, and then I quit out of the blue because my conscience couldn't take it, because it was this whole BS story you had to tell people.
Right.
Like, hey, we're going to show you the Cadillac window. Oh, you can't afford that. Well, there's this window, but you know what? I think we're making these Cadillac windows right now. Let me see if my uncle owned the business. That was the story. If he could just throw a few of these nice windows on there for you guys at the lower price, since we're already making them, that whole thing. It was just total
crazy
shit show. Yeah.
When you were in the Corps, did that change your perspective on what you wanted to do? Is that where you got the thought process of, I want to make a difference? Or is that already instilled in you beforehand?
It was always there. It was just always there. I came out of the womb, LeBron comes out, he can play basketball, and, Gary Vee comes out and he can sell baseball cards $4,000 in a weekend when he's 12 and shit like that. They just knew they had these skills or whatever that had to be developed. I knew, I didn't know what. I had no idea. Very, very different world. We didn't have social media. We didn't have YouTube. We didn't have Facebook. We didn't have smartphones. And so I just didn't know how, but I knew innately that I was meant to do something on a big scale for humanity. That's the only way I can put it. So, but yeah, I knew. But I had a lot of, just not a lot of direction. And even though I was in the Marines and stuff, when I was in that environment, very disciplined, and it was great. But, you get me out of the Marines, and it was a different story for a while. I struggled finding who I was. And I mean, I played, part of the equation here that I haven't shared with you is I was also supposed to be a rock star. So I played drums. I played drums for many years. So I was like gigging, 5, 6, 7 nights a week, working in the trades. My uncle's paint crew at the time, I think out of all 12, 13 employees, everyone was in a band. Like, it was just like, everyone was a musician. You guys probably know a lot of musicians in the trades. It's just kind of, so yeah, I just felt, I don't know. I felt there was a stage in my future. I just didn't know what the stage looked like. And it's kind of funny that, I've been blessed to be alive at a time like now where, we can do stuff like this, and I can.
Why did you leave the Corps?
I was going to be a rock star.
That was really why?
Yeah, well, there are a couple of reasons. First reason, there was a girl. Okay, so we'll just push that aside.
Sure.
There was a girl. And then the second part was we were out in California, dude, and, we had some connections in LA,
right.
Connections. And there were some people that were interested in us and stuff. And I'm like, well, I can't do that if I'm in the Corps. And it's funny when I reflect, I love where I am right now in my life, but there is a big part of me that wishes I would have stayed in, because every time there was a conflict, I was a Desert Storm guy, and a couple other things that we did. And every time till this day that there's a conflict in the world, I feel like I got to be there, right? Like my brothers are there and stuff like that. But it was a great environment that taught me a lot about leadership. I think that's when I look back, what did I need to learn in that time? Was definitely leadership stuff that has helped me going forward.
What was the conversation like with your son when he wanted to join?
I was all for it. I just told him, I said, you got to know that, they're going to own your ass. Like, you signed that contract. You are property of the United States government, like, legitimately. And I said, so just don't do this if you're going to, if you're not all in. And, I supported it. And, and his mom, rightly so, was a little bit nervous about it stuff, but, everybody's super proud, his mom and our friends and my girlfriend and I mean, we're all like so fired up and proud of him because I see a lot of him and me in the sense that, he has so much potential and he just needed I think a place to land for a while and kind of find himself a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think just going through 13 and a half weeks of Marine Corps boot camp and finishing with a thing that's called the Crucible, and which is 56 hours, and you travel, you eat twice, you get a couple hours of sleep, you go 48 miles. It's a real ball buster, a lot of exercises along the way and things like that. It really tests you. And I wanted him to have that moment where he was presented with that Eagle, Globe, and Anchor, where he could finally look in the mirror and know that he earned something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So super proud of him.
I think that, and I never served, but that was always something that I'm always curious about, because when you're in, and that's why I asked why you left, right? And I think we asked Steve Basic the same thing, and it was a similar answer. There was a girl, whether we push that aside or not, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
There's usually some sort of big life decision or a fork in the road where it's like, am I going to continue with this or am I going to start a different life?
Yeah.
And the comment you made about, anytime there's a conflict in the world, feeling as though your brothers are out there, and you need to be part of that. That's always been kind of how I think.
Mm-hmm.
Where, I would have been in that situation where, typically when I do something, I go all in.
Right.
And there was a big part of me at one point in my life that I wanted to leave vocational high school and go into the military. And I went back. I decided to go to college and whatever. Fast forward, I started a business. But I oftentimes think about if I had went, what my life would have been like, and if I would have been in there for life.
Yeah, when I went in, I planned on being there for life, and I think it's similar though to, I'm a football guy, and in fact, I just recently resigned after, I've been a high school football coach for about 17 years, and I just resigned this past spring here of my head coach position here at this place, and that's a whole nother story, but it was just time. It was time to be done, and
Sure.
and I've been blessed that I've had enough success where I've had the freedom to be able to do that for so many years, and I've really built my business and my life around the fact that I wanted to coach football. Like, that was really, when I started in business many years ago, I'm like, in fact, way back, I don't know, 2002, 2002, 2003, I partnered with somebody, and one of the first conversations we had was, I'm like, you got to understand, I coach ball, and so from like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock every day, I'm done. I disappear, and I'll sell, I'll market, I'll hit our goals, I'll do what I got to do. I'll burn the candle late at night if I need to, but this is part of my life.
Yeah.
Because it comes back to the impact thing. I want to have an impact. And I knew, I think I'm alive because of football and my football coaches. Because
Sure.
I came from a family that had, a lot of substance issues and, trouble and stuff like that. And football was that safe place for me. So that's what I wanted to be. But I think football, I think the trades, one of the things I miss is those times where you're giving each other crap on the job site, the times where you're all flipping over a 5-gallon bucket and sitting down and, taking a break or having lunch or, whatever, like those, it's that camaraderie that you have being on a team.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably what I miss the most about the core, but I was able to find it in other areas. You know what I'm saying?
Do you ever feel, and this might be a hard question, but do you ever feel as though when you left the core that you were quitting it?
No, not at the time. No, I think at that point in my life, I think it was the best decision for me at that time based upon the information that I have. And I think I try to view pretty much all my decisions that way.
Mm-hmm.
There's certainly things you do over. But listen, if I stayed in the core, I wouldn't have my 3 kids now.
Right.
Now I'd probably have another 3 kids, right?
Sure.
But I would have these 3 kids, and these are the 3 I want. And
right.
So, I wouldn't have the relationship I have with my girlfriend. I wouldn't have, the friends that I have. So I'm super happy with the way it turned out.
Yeah. I mean, to relate it to business ownership, right? It's,
mm-hmm.
I think, I don't think, I know all of us, and anyone that's listening, we go through these ups and downs. And there's
mm-hmm.
times where we genuinely want to quit, want to say screw it, we'll go work for someone or whatever the case may be. And I feel as though that is something that we don't talk about because, and that's what, guys like you and what we're trying to do with the podcast, like we're trying to shed light on that. This isn't always great. And it's okay to want to quit, but and it's okay. And I should note that it's also okay to walk away from something when it isn't right. And I think that's a really hard decision for a lot of people to make. And I think if I were ever in a position where I genuinely had to give this up, it would be extremely hard for me to do it. Even if it was to the point where it was like a life or death situation, just because of the way my thought process works, I would feel as though I was giving up or quitting, where instead of looking at it like you just said, this is a decision based on the health and wellness of me and my family, good or bad.
And it's none of us go into decisions trying to screw our lives up.
Mm-hmm.
We make transitions in life or whatever because we think it's the best move at the time. And I've just I think I have a lot of confidence in the things that I do because I surround myself with winners. I really work hard to surround myself with people that'll tell me the truth. And, I think it was 2011, I had a painting company outside of Chicago and had a partner and we went to lunch at, where'd we go? TGI Fridays one day. And I'm like, hey, I think I'm done. And he was like, what? Things were going well. We were profitable. We had a great team. I'd sell, 300 something jobs a year we do. And, basically residential painting, and I'd sell the job and never set foot on it again. Like we had it dialed in. And again, it was that feeling inside of me, or that voice, whatever you want to call it, that unrest, that uneasiness. I've learned to listen to the uneasiness when it keeps showing up. And I just said, hey, I love you. I think we got a good thing going here, but I just think I'm ready for the next chapter, whatever that is. And there was a part of me that felt like I was quitting to some degree, because there's always problems in a business. I don't care whose business it is. There's problems,
sure.
But I encourage guys all the time. In fact, I say publicly all the time that about 70 to 80% of home improvement contractors probably shouldn't even be in business for themselves, for various reasons. And none of those reasons are they're a bad person or, whatever. It's just maybe something else is calling you. Maybe you got guilted into following in your dad's footsteps. Maybe, whatever it might be. But back to what you were saying earlier about the whole, it's not always, sunshine and rainbows here owning a business. One of my good friends and clients, he owns a company called Aquascape, and they're like the water feature kings of the world, and they're based outside of Chicago. And, he's done an amazing job of building this network of these pond guys, and we work with a lot of them, and I've gotten close. In fact, two of them are two of my business partners now. And Greg Whitstock, he's the guy that owns Aquascape. Every time he gets in front of a group of business owners, he's like, all business is solving problems. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. So to go into this thinking you're not going to have problems and all that, is just not good thinking, because somebody calls you because they have a problem. I need something fixed. I need something built. That's a problem. Now, maybe it's a first world problem. It's not like you're starving or something, you know what I'm saying? But, so I think if we can embrace that mindset right out of the gate, that, hey, I'm just here to solve problems. And every time I solve a problem, I get a little bit better at solving problems, and my problems are going to get bigger the better I get. So, business is tough, but it's hard to be successful and it's hard to be not successful. Like that's what I've always felt.
Yeah. And I think even as far as solving problems go, I feel that a lot of times the difference between mediocre and good, or good and great, is your ability to either solve problems or foresee potential problems and kind of mitigate that prior to having them explode in your face, especially with what we do. John, I know, hates the term putting out fires, so don't use that in front of him. But
I think we're in front of him because I think he just showed up. Finally, he's late enough. Jeez.
We're used to it, though. But I feel like so much of our job is, and I've also noticed that so much of the difference between owning a business and an employee is when there's always something wrong. There's every single day there's something wrong. You walk into a crap show, and instead of sitting there and dwelling on it or getting upset about it, it's like, all right, what do we need to do to fix it? And just taking that first step and not letting that kind of trip you up.
It's easy to overreact.
Yeah. Yo, John, what are you doing? What are you drinking?
It's a watermelon shanty. It's perfect.
Oh my God.
What a hell of a day.
You want some?
Where are you, on the vineyard?
You want some raspberry schnapps to go with that, or you?
He's on the vineyard.
No, I'm not.
He's got on a seersucker suit right now. Look at him.
Just for all the listeners. Yeah. What's funny?
What's up? Long day?
Oh, yeah. Nonstop.
Look, windows are masked up. He's getting ready for paint prep.
Yeah, dude. I'm trying.
Damn.
I couldn't have a 6th podcast in a row where nothing's changed in the background. I was like, I gotta get something
so let's hang
done.
plastic up.
Good thing we're not podcasting in my daughter's bathroom, because I don't think that's made any changes in about a year.
It's all right.
Yeah, great job, Dad.
It's funny. I was listening to what's the podcast I like besides ours? It's I think it's How I Built This. Yeah, How I Built This.
Uh-huh.
It's a great podcast. One of the last ones that came on was, listened to it twice, the guy from Shake Shack. I think we talked about him on a podcast before because they took the money from the PPP and then gave back a ton. But he talks about that, putting out fires. And he said that his grandfather used to say, if you're going to be good at this business, get good at the hard things and don't complain about them. Just when they come up, you should almost like David Goggins, like, what? Like, bring it. This is a good thing. Even, Jocko, I want the suck. Like, that's what's going to make me better short term and long term. So why would you complain about it? Like,
I think that's a really good point, John. Because I think the part of it that I like is the fact that you don't complain about it. And that's where I think people fail in business as an employer and as an employee, is when the complaints, when it's complaint time, where, my guys can bring issues to me all day long. I'm not going to sit there and complain about it because, first off, there's no one else I can complain to that's going to help me.
I can. I'll give it to you.
Well, I'll text you.
Sounding board.
But like in that situation, it's like, if I start complaining, I mean, in their mind, they're like, shit. Like,
it's over.
They imitate it, right?
Right.
They imitate it.
Yeah.
Well, no, they don't even imitate it. They magnify it. Whatever you
they
say,
walk away
even
like,
the smallest things, whatever you do, whatever you try and promote, they are a magnification of what you're trying to imply with your company and with your brand and with your execution. And that's the biggest thing I talk about. And when even last week, someone called me And I'm like, you're just selling fear. Like this kid was like, I got this great opportunity to go off island and do this renovation. And it's just a lot of work. And I'm like, are you selling me on fear? Because that's what it sounds like. Mm-hmm. And Tom, I've listened to a bunch of your podcasts and you do the same thing. It's like, don't be scared. Like,
yeah.
But a lot of people find their worth in fear. Meaning, hey, I'm going to tell this homeowner that it's this amount of work, build this thing up so big that they have to hire me. And right. it's because otherwise, who else do they have? But no, it's like our job is to make it look easy, like Tommy Silva. How many times has he put like a stair together in the deck and it's like every piece he grabs behind him is perfect. And it's just like, he set the bar so high for me that I'm like, why am I like, even this shiplap, I'm out cutting each piece like 6 times by a CH. And I'm like, what's going on? And I'm like trying to do the angle where I have, the whole triangle cut like 7 deep. And the first one I put up's wrong. I'm like, that means the next 6 I got to recut. What the hell am I doing wrong?
Vinyl siding, man.
No, I still try. I did it with all these angles here, and they're all a little different.
Fear is funny. It's what I found is the longer you don't deal with it, that's fuel for it. Mm-hmm. It grows, and I've had a lot of turning points in life. I've seen a lot of people have turning points in their life when they decided to go toe to toe with the stuff that freaks them out. So if you got a customer right now, I don't know, probably just about everybody listening to this podcast has a customer or employee that they know they have to have a conversation with.
Mm-hmm. Or, right? Or sub.
Or a sub, employee, sub, whatever. Customer that you have to have a tough conversation. The sooner who's it? Mel Robbins, she's a speaker, author, all that stuff. She talks about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yep.
Like, because when you give your brain more time to work on it, it's going to talk you out of it because it's going to protect you.
Right.
And so the greatest growth in my life has always come when I've gone toe to toe with the things that freak me out. And so
Mel's great, by the way.
Yeah.
She's like,
really good.
Like no bullshit.
Yeah. I think, I haven't thought about her in a while. I got to go back and listen to some of her stuff, read her book again and stuff. But, so I would encourage anybody, like whatever's freaking you out a little bit, that's when you grow, like you think of the weight room, right? You only grow when you put your muscles under stress, And so, and the cool thing is we don't have to go, let's get all cliche here, right? Get out of your comfort zone and stuff, but you don't have to go a mile out of it. You got to go an inch out of it, and if you just go each day, you ask yourself, how can I make myself a little more uncomfortable? You want to go after a week, like, what's one thing? Talking about money. Like a lot of people have a lot of head trash around talking about money when it comes to their customers and their sales process and stuff. So I go pick one thing, hit one nail in at a time. Don't tap a nail in and then run over here and start hitting another one. And you got all these unfinished nails, right?
Don't tickle it, as my old boss used to say.
Don't tickle it. I like
Don't
that.
tickle it.
Yeah. So, go and just say, I'm going to deal with this money crap in my head, and I'm going to look for opportunities to have conversations about it. I'm going to look for ways to get uncomfortable. I'm going to keep just a little bit at a time. And I really believe that, that's the whole compound interest thing, the whole compound effect. It's like you build the habit. You brought up Goggins, right? He has a life that's built on the habit of being uncomfortable, and it's made him hard as nails. And same thing applies in business. If there's things that you're struggling with, things you're afraid of. I used to be super afraid to collect money, because I was a sales guy. I wanted them to still like me,
right?
And, my business partner would be like, hey, so-and-so didn't pay us and they owe us money and you need to go collect it. I'm like, well, send another invoice. I'd always puss out on it.
Send a reminder. Yeah, we had
behind email,
Are we at 90 days yet?
Yeah.
I'll do it at 90.
And there was a period of time where I just, I had to examine, okay, why is it that this bothers me? And it's because I didn't want to risk the relationship, but that fear right there, I actually done a few videos on this one topic where this one issue is what's probably keeping you broken in debt.
Right.
Is because you don't have the confidence that you are worth a lot. What we do as contractors is worth something. They know they need to pay you. You know you need to get paid. So why is this such a big deal? All right, so let's deal with that. And if you just, I mean, I was working with a guy, he was like so far in the hole, he was struggling financially, blah, blah, blah. We got into his QuickBooks, sent it over to my bookkeeper, and she's like, well, they haven't invoiced like $110,000 in 3 months. That's why they don't have any money. They haven't invoiced it. You know, and so I talked to the owner. I'm like, did you invoice it? He's like, well, we sent one invoice, but we haven't followed up on the money. I'm like, well, dude, that's your money. It's better in your account than their account. You know, so got to get uncomfortable, but I don't mean that in the cliche way. I just mean like,
no, but the money thing is always interesting to me. And that's what, you know, even like right in the beginning of the sales process, and that's probably what you're kind of alluding to, is that, you know, when we're talking to a new lead, we get that out of the way right away.
Yeah.
It's like, listen, I'm going to explain real quick how we work. We're open book. We're transparent. We're going to work. The easiest way we can do this is set a target and then get the builder, the architect, and the homeowner walking down the same path. So if your budget is $1 million, so let's set that as our target and we work towards that $1 million. And, you know, and John, you've referenced it. It's like, yeah, they can have a contingency in their mind and not tell us about it. But if we're going to dance around this and I'm going to tell you what I want and I'm going to tell you when I want it, but I want you to tell me how much it's going to cost. Well, now we're dancing around the problem. And it's like, what? So when we price it and we're $1.5 million, you're going to tell me what? That I'm expensive, that you can't afford that, you know, now we're wasting both of our time. And it's, you know, trying to set that right at the beginning, you know, that was where I was uncomfortable, is saying how much something cost right off the bat, or how much I think something was going to cost, because I would always undersell it. I would always tell them it would be, oh yeah, this will be, you know, $100,000, and I knew in my mind that it was like $250.
Yeah.
And I would do it because I would want that conversation to keep happening, and I didn't want to be the guy that sold myself out when, you know, their budget in their mind was $225 and I tell them $250, and I was afraid that if I was 25 over, that the conversation died.
I feel like it's similar to schedule. You're like, hey, I can get that done in 6 weeks, and in your mind, you're like, that's 10 weeks at least.
Yeah.
You do the same thing. Just to, I don't know. It, like, you're telling them what they want to hear rather than what's reality.
But at the flip side, you go in that meeting and you're like, there's the way I do it, the way that the other guy does it, and there's the shade ball that's just underbidding everything in like 3 months. And you're like, man, for some reason, I always go into stuff now where I'm always like thinking about the other 3 people that are walking in the room, hypothetically. You know, I'm like, where do I stand in the situation? Like, how am I saying it? How am I coming across? And just kind of be like, hey, I know there's going to be a guy that walks in here and goes, it's 3 months. He's lying to you. He also says it doesn't rain and the weather's not going to affect you, and all these things. They go, this is just to kind of make them understand that maybe that person's already walked in the room and they go, we've heard that. We've heard that exact thing. Mm-hmm. And so that's where the comfort comes in. So whatever my number is, if it's a new client that I don't really know, Nick, you brought up the example, is that I don't know if I have the job. So like I'll look at it that way. Makes me feel better. Is go, hey, I don't know where we stand, but like to me, this is a $400,000 job. Meaning,
if you're getting it out of the way.
If we have to go separate ways, I get it. And again, that comes with having work lined up. Right. That you're not so paranoid of that whole that cloud of like the nothing that I don't have work, that'll wake you up at 3 a.m. But I mean, that's how I went about it. It's just kind of, you know, I don't know if this is gonna work for us. Like I'm interviewing them at the same time, meaning it's kind of casual, and if we got to walk, we have to walk. And you'd be surprised how many times people are like, no, I want this. I want this kind of interaction.
I like to tell guys the sales process is an audition. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a time to, let's get on the same page, see if we're a good fit, all that other stuff. But this is, you know, and I think, again, this is part of bringing respect back to the trades, is helping contractors see that you're an equal. Okay, you are an equal to that person who's dropping $1 million on the house, or whatever, or 400 grand, or whatever it is. And a lot of times we go in there and we take the position that oh, I'm just the lowly peasant contractor here to serve you, master. You know, I mean, that was me for many years. And I think a lot of it's rooted in, we have a lot of money issues, and we typically will sell in the same manner in which we buy if we don't train ourselves. So for example, if you go out and you're going to shop for something and it's $5,000, whatever it is, if you think $5,000 is a lot of money, when you're selling, you're going to think $5,000 is a lot of money, which is going to lead you to 11:30 at night before you hit send on your proposal. You're going to negotiate against yourself, and you're going to go, oh my God, you know, raise your hand here on the screen if you ever done that, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. If you didn't raise your hand, yeah, they all raise their hands. Okay. We all did. And
they're lying if they haven't.
Yeah, because we what's a lot to us might not be a lot to somebody else. And so that's where in this whole sales process of the money thing, we got to make sure that we're not making assumptions. We're not mind reading. You know, we're not, I mean, I remember going on this bid once and I was terrified. We were always higher than everybody else. I'm talking 30, 50, 100% higher than everybody else almost every time. I go in this and it was a small paint job and it was like $12,000 or something. And I was freaking out. And I'm like, yeah, it's $12,000. And they're like, okay, let's do it. And I was like, okay, cool. And I leave and I felt great about it. My buddy who referred me, he's like, oh, I forgot to tell you, they inherited like, $3 million from a relative who died or some shit like that. They thought the paint job was gonna be like 50, and I could have gone up to 50 before they gave a crap. And I think everybody has a give a crap number when it comes to money. Like we can all think of a number right now that if you went out for dinner, let's just go for dinner, and there were no prices on the menu, you know what I mean? And the bill came, there's an amount that you'd start to give a crap. And the problem is when we're selling our services, we start mind reading. And so that's why it's super important to just have conversations like you guys are having up front. Open and honest. Let's get to the motive. Why do you want this? And I think, there's a lot of other things going to the sales process. Like all of you guys, I've seen all your stuff on Instagram and your websites. You guys, you're first rate, and that sends a message. You know what I mean? Like that's part of the sales process. And there's so many contractors out there that can't figure out why they can't get people to spend big bucks with them. But when you go to their website, you go to their social media, you look at their trucks, you look at their shirts and all this other stuff, they're like a, I don't know, instead of a BMW, they're a freaking Datsun or something. If anyone remembers the Datsun from a million years ago. So all that is supplementary stuff that helps send a message, and it positions your brand. I don't look at any of Nick, I'll tell you what, Nick, you were on my podcast like 2 years ago. I think it was something like that, two and a half years ago. Since then, I have shown your Instagram feed to no less than 100 people on coaching calls and things like that. Because I'm like, as an example, because when you look at your stuff, if you don't know you're going to be writing a bigger check than you are with the average contractor, then you're like dead. You don't have a pulse. And so that's positioning. So positioning is super important. And then I think up front, a lot of times we go out, we get in the bidding process. It could be, what you guys do. It could be a painter or a flooring guy. It doesn't matter. You go through this whole sales process just to be told, oh my God, that's way more than we thought. So you wasted all this time.
Right. When
this is where your website and project profiles and social media, and you're talking about things and price ranges and all those things will sell for you. I heard long ago that your marketing should be like a really good drive on the golf course and a couple shots that get the ball like 3 inches from the cup. So when the sales time comes, it's just a short putt. It's an easy putt. It's a gimme.
I have a wicked slice.
Yeah, I do too. I have to totally aim this way to hit it over there. So
that's what I do. I hit sideways to hit straight.
Yeah, I do too. And every now and then I hit sideways and it goes perfectly straight into an apartment building or something. That's a problem. So
it's funny. Nick can dance like crazy, like super flexible, does this drop, whatever it is, like drop like it's hot.
The booty drop?
Drop it like it's hot. But dude, when he gets on the golf course,
terrible.
Stiffest dude I know. He's like so stiff that you're like, I just don't get what's happening right here. I've seen both Nicks, and I don't know how this this
I
doesn't
lock up.
relate.
I
You
lock
do.
up.
It's like this crazy.
I get
That's
one
funny.
good hit every time I go out, and that's
You
it.
just gotta play some dance hits, and he'll loosen right
Oh,
up.
get some swing oil going.
Well, isn't that
Oh,
what
yeah.
golf is, though? Golf's that game that you suck, but every round you have one or two shots that make you think you'd be a golfer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So you keep going back.
Get this.
But I think a word track up front, we talk a lot about word tracks in my world. Like, what do you say to somebody? Somebody says, hey, I want an addition. I want you to design and build an addition for us. Or I want you to design and build this backyard getaway. I think just right out of the gate, just having the courage to talk about money and put it on the table right away and just go, hey, Nick, I know you said you want this addition. Am I designing you, $100,000, $150,000 one, or are we going to go crazy and go 300 to 500? Where are we at? And oftentimes, just that word track, somebody will go, well, my God, 100, 150. We were thinking 30.
Right.
We're not even on the same planet. And then right there, that's where most contractors start defending, right? Well, we do quality work and we don't use morons on our jobs and all this other crap. Instead, I always coach people to just, so if that came back to me and you said, oh my God, 150, 150, that's way over what we thought it would be. I just go, yeah, it's not surprising. We hear that a lot. What do you think our next move is here? And then just shut your mouth. Just shut your mouth. Many times they'll guide you to the solution. And sometimes the solution is, well, God, that's way more than we thought, but we've heard a lot of good things about you. Give us a couple days to figure out where we're going to draw the funds from, because I got a couple of accounts I can pull it from. See, we're not making an assumption.
Mm-hmm.
We're just because somebody says it's too much money doesn't mean it's forever too much money. It might be too much today. It might be. I mean, I remember I accidentally sold a job because I was choking. I was on the phone with somebody and I took a drink and it went down the wrong pipe and I couldn't respond to something he said. So there was silence and like 4 seconds, 6 seconds of silence, whatever it was. And all he was doing, in my mind, I'm going, oh, he thinks that's too much money. I should probably tell him, but we could do it at a different time of the year. We could be it cheaper. That's what we do as contractors. We start trying to solve the problem. Problem wasn't the price. The problem was he was literally going, yeah, that sounds good. I just need a day to transfer money from this account. He was working it through in his brain where he was going to find the money for the deposit check.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess the whole moral of this whole thing I've been on here is don't make assumptions, in the sales process.
I forget what book it is.
And it's not our last thing. It's not our job to find their money. It's their job to find their money. It's our job to understand what they really want and to knock it out of the park, and when you know your numbers, it's going to be expensive. And I think that's one of the things that our world has done a really crappy job with the trades is they've made it seem like, from all the reality shows that are out there and, all the articles online. That's why content is so important for us to write blogs and create our own content so that we're not getting smothered by the third-party lead generating sites that are out there that are creating, how much does it cost to build a deck? And you don't want them answering it. You want the contractor answering that, and setting realistic budgets and expectations.
John, I forget what book it was, but I'm pretty sure you listened to it too. Is it The Art of Silence or The Art of...
Chris Voss with Never Split the Difference.
Never Split the Difference. Yep.
And talks about silence and
the
how
pause.
the pause and how they, exactly what you said, Tom, is they basically react negatively and then they work themselves up to you rather than you working yourself down to them.
Well, there's a game to this. That's that relationship. Like it's like going on a date. You almost get a little anxious and get the adrenaline going. So when you give a number, that's your big swing.
Yeah.
So like you're like, all right, yeah, this is my jam. And then you're reading them, and then you're like, what's going on? And you got like 17 multiple choices they're going to come up with. That's going to take you down this other road, and then it's really tough. And I mean, Nick, you've done an amazing job at conquering that. Like so early on in your career, for the longest time, I mean, I still get rattled by it. Like all the stuff that you're saying, Tom, it's just like I find that I get into a situation where it's like you can take a deck and substitute that for a new build, and it's like someone goes, I want a new build. This is what we're thinking of a square footage. We have an architect, so it's checking off a lot of the boxes. So it's like it's not so much the budget; it's the other part of this game is maybe it's not about the budget and it's about the personality. Because when you get to a certain level, that is the difference. Like, what questions do you ask that makes it more appealing that you're going to connect with that client? And I know someone's going to listen to this, but if you go in to do a deck, a lot of times you've all been told the same thing. It's 10, 15 grand or 15 to 30 grand is your budget. So it's how you go in there and what it is you're trying to, I think we talked about this maybe with Ben, is like you're trying to be like today I was on this call with landscape architect, designer, architect, and we're like, how big's the pool house got to be? You know, is 12 by 20 enough? And I'm just listening because I'm like, I'm the dumbest guy out of this group. Like, there's enough people getting paid here to make sense of it. And then they're like, yeah, we'll put a bathroom in here, put a wet bar, we'll put the grill right in front of the pool equipment. So I let it all go to be like, hey, this is where this is traveling. I'm like, someone will bring it back. Someone that makes more money than me will bring it back on track. And no one does. So I'm like, yo, if I'm grilling, I don't want to be ostracized from the group. I want to be in the mix. And I was like, I had to zoom up and I was circling the master plan for landscape. And I'm like, I would put the grill station to the right so I could see the yard, see the pool, grill, chill, and put a TV up on the side of the pool house. And I'm like, that's my domain. I'll cook all day.
Yep.
And the client's like, do it. But it's like, I sit back for a little bit just to kind of feel it all out because I don't want to, again, I've been told recently to stay in my lane. But Nick knows. I talked to him.
Well, what you tapped into there with that client was their motive. And our motive for buying anything is rooted in pain or pleasure. It doesn't matter what we're buying. And a lot of people won't hire a contractor because he wasn't expensive enough. I know a lot of guys that lost jobs because they weren't enough money because the client felt like, if I'm not dropping at least X amount of dollars on this thing, I'm not getting the best.
Yeah, but the other part is like they will
ego
pay.
Involved, right?
If you create, they're like, I don't care. Like, I don't care if it's another 10 grand. I want the image that you just painted for me.
Bingo.
Like, I can see that. Like that's the real, not, I don't want to say trick because trick shouldn't be in this, but that's really that's what I've learned over the years is that's the real big ticket is when you're walking through a house and you've solved like where we put paper towels so kids can get to them. You do rollouts down below so kids can get their own snacks earlier on. I wouldn't have been able to say any of those things if I didn't have kids. Because I would have been like, whatever.
To clarify on John's point, like that's not just a big project. Like you're talking about upselling, right? Because like selling
just
the
understanding what I would want in that situation.
Yeah, but and just to clarify for the audience, because I feel like everyone looks at this and they're like, yeah, of course you're building $1 million house. Who cares if you put a TV on the side of the pool house? But that's all the way down to a simple built-in. Yeah. And it's like understanding what they're looking to do and then selling them on the vision. Like if they walk in and I want a built-in. Well, hey, wouldn't it be great if you could come in and the kids could sit down and take off their shoes and have a place to put their shoes away. It's the same exact thing. It's like
even like in a family room. It's like, what, you guys have a lot of board games? That dictates the depth of that built-in. You guys like to display stuff, or do you guys more like, hey, let's shut the doors and make the mess go away like we did in college? Girls coming over, shove everything in the closet and just shut the door. Like, how do you guys live? And it's those little kind of comments that triggers to them that, oh my God, that's me. You just described me. And you're trying to get those moments happening more often. So that way, in my opinion, so when it comes down to numbers, be like, what does that idea cost me again? The one that you came up with like that built in, is it wood grain? Is it not? Is it paint grade? I want all that now because I love that feeling. And it's like, oh, I'll put numbers to that. Give me a day or two. I'll put numbers to that built in, or even that. I mean, Nick, to my point, they were putting a grill station in regardless. Like I know. And it's like, how do you?
I'm relating it to all clientele, not just those that are building a pool or pool, like a grill station, stuff like that.
Well, I think a lot of, I'm not going to talk for a lot of builders, but I feel like a lot of people go through the A, B, and C motions. All right, yeah, you want to grill over there? Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And it's someone else's job.
Mm-hmm. Yep, a lot of people will jump right to the money. Yeah, they'll jump right to just being a yes man without understanding the motive. That's kind of what I heard there from you was you created a partnership And when, you brought up Chris Voss, it's funny. Every time I hear his name, I'm pissed because we were like 5 minutes away from booking him for one of our Sales Academy events.
Dude.
And because he was going to be in the same town we were at the same time. And one of my business partners was like connecting with, so we'll get him. We'll end up getting him here soon.
I was like, he must be a great negotiator for his rate.
Yeah, well, we were dealing with his assistant, and he was traveling. It just the universe didn't align right. We were doing this event in York, Pennsylvania, and he happened to be like 45 minutes away doing something. But anyway, a lot of his concepts are just what we're talking about here. It's really understanding the motive. It's learning to connect with somebody in a way that no other contractor is going to connect with them. The fact that, John, if you want me to come out and build something for you, I'm going to be, one of the first things I'm going to ask you is John, help me see what you see. When this is done, help me see what you see, and just shut your mouth. And you will be amazed at how much people will put out when you ask a question like that. Or you go, John, you're going to hire somebody to do this. You're going to stroke a check on the last day of the job or whatever. They're going to get in their trucks and they're going to drive away off into the sunset. What would have needed to happen for you to feel that this was the best experience you've ever had with a contractor? Shut your mouth. They will always lead you to their motive, because one of the problems that we make in the sales process is we pitch and present and tap dance all the things that we think are important. We use this kind of wood. We do that this way. We blah, blah, when none of those things are even on their radar. And that's probably the biggest mistake I see with contractors in the sales process, keeping guys from making the money they need to make, and also from creating more headaches for themselves down the road, because they don't truly take the time to go deep into the motive of what the customer is really after. I'm thinking of somebody right now who their whole motive for doing their project, I forget what the project was. It was, I'm embarrassed to have my girlfriends over. That was it. And when he shut his mouth and he got that, he just kept asking some great open-ended questions. He did a little what-ifing. Hey, what would be the ideal afternoon here if you had your girlfriends over? What would that look like? And she basically built the scope of the job for him. He took some notes and he says, hey, is it cool if we talk money right now? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, are you sitting down? They were on the phone. He's like, are you sitting down? And she's like, yeah. She sent some pictures over. He says, she laughed. She goes, why do I need to sit down? He says, because after I tell you what I think it's going to cost, I don't want you to be mad at me, and then you might fall over and hit your head or something, and had a little fun with it. And she chuckled, and he told her what it was going to cost, and she's like, let's do it.
So he high anchored her.
Yeah.
Chris Voss again.
Yeah. But there's that whole bracketing thing, and so it's rooted in the motive. Like, if you go to money too soon without really understanding what's important to them in anything that you're selling. I mean, you think of the last time you bought a car, right? It's a whole emotional thing. And as soon as
hate
you're
buying cars, man.
I do too.
Yeah, that's
as soon
because
as you're
you buy one every other week.
Yeah. As soon as you're emotionally invested, as soon as you're emotionally invested in that car, you're going to pay whatever you need to pay. You're going to be figuring out in your head how to make it happen.
Yeah.
I played drums, and I remember a million years ago, I wanted the Yamaha Rock Tour custom drum set in this pearl white finish, 7-piece kit. I couldn't afford it. I wasn't making nothing. But you know what? I emotionally was attached to it, and I found a way. And so people will always find a way for the things that are truly important to them, and it's up to us as a salesperson to understand what that motive is.
I think you nailed it right there. Like, what I value is stuff that's handmade, and I feel like that's what gets lost in this. That's why I beat you up, Nick, every time. It's like, let's do modular, let's make it faster, let's do this. And I'm like, is it handcrafted anymore? Like, is that valuable? Because everything that, like, how much do you love your C10, Nick? If that thing was mass produced, would you love it as much? No.
Maybe the fuel line wouldn't have blown the other day, but
but that's what gives it its value. Yeah. Is that, like, I don't know, but I'm like, that's what really is. You mentioned websites. My website's is a cover page with two gentlemen holding hands. It feels like Benny and I, and it works. But we're rewriting it now, and it's like, that is the root of the website. Is I don't want to lose the fact that there's, I don't know how many pairs of hands it takes to create these houses. And that will never be lost. It's like the one-off watch I have. I love those things, and those will never lose value, no matter how much technology comes along. I love my Apple Watch for like 2 days before it buzzes so much that I'm like, lose it. But like the regular time watch that I got, I'll wear that to dinner.
It's funny. I
days.
had a customer cold call me yesterday. I spoke with her, and I didn't know how to approach her, how she found me, all of that. And I hadn't really, a lot of times I'll sit down, I'll try and find who the customer is, what they want done, maybe get an email from them. And I didn't really have time to do that, but I knew where she lived, and it was a customer based on their house, the work that they've done before, that I would, kind of fight for a little bit more. So I didn't know how to take the next step. I wanted to do something a little different, so I reached out to her today and was like, hey, I'm not really sure what you're looking for in a contractor, but if you'd like, how about I come meet at your place, and then after we swing by my job, and you could take a peek at our job. We're wrapping it up shortly. We'll get you in and out. Nobody else will be there, and you can at least see, our level of execution, our site protection, how we deal with a house where people are living in it. And she was ecstatic to be able to do that. And it's like, it's one of the first times where I just openly admitted, I don't know what you're looking for, but at least you can see what we're doing. And I don't necessarily even need to say anything at that point.
Tyler, what did you mean by you'd fight for them more?
I think that being that I only do a certain amount of work, there's certain leads that I'm going to kind of go after more than other ones that I know aren't necessarily.
So what was that trigger?
So where they live, the amount of work that they've done before, the quality of work that they've done in their home. So usually it's like somebody gets a hold of me, and then I'll figure out kind of where they live, what their home value is, if they've done work to the house before, and did a little bit of my own homework and was like, hey, took the phone call, spoke with her, got some of the information or contact information, and then usually I'll go and do a little bit of a homework to see, do I want to schedule a visit with this person kind of sight unseen? Do I want to vet them a little bit more via email or another phone conversation rather than waste my time? Because there's a lot of customers get a hold of me and you have a conversation with them, then you find out where they live and you're like, your house is worth X amount. I know that you will, whatever we do, our price point will be a deferral for you, or a deterrent, and it's going to be a huge wall. So she checked all of the boxes. And a lot of times, like you said, you're sitting there and you're trying to sell yourself and telling them what you do that's different, and there's just too much that you're going to throw at them. So it's like, I don't know what you want. Why don't you just come take a look and see if we're a good fit for you? And it's just, I feel like at that point I can let our work speak for itself. And then at that point it's like, do you want to talk to some of our customers, see our experience? And then I don't necessarily have to actually sell something.
I like how you asked her for help.
Yeah.
There's a innate quality. I forget where I first heard it. I don't know. Hopefully not Chris Voss, because then that'd be weird. Because I keep bringing him up. But people want to rescue people. They want to help people. They want to be helpful. And a lot of times, like you did, hey, I don't know where to go with this right now. I'm trying to design this project for you, and I can get really crazy over here with this. I can get really crazy over here with this. What do you think we should do?
Yeah.
You just asked for help. And now there's a partnership. I guarantee you none of the other contractors are having that conversation with her like you did.
Yeah, and I think
because most of us try to puff our ego up and, hey, we're all this.
Are you looking right at me?
No, I wasn't looking at me.
I feel like that is.
I can't tell with the screens.
You feeling guilty there? Or something?
It's an issue, especially when you first start in business or you're younger in business, or a lot of my competitors are 10, 15, 20 years older than me. It's not kids my age or guys my age. So a lot of it is you want to seem confident. You want to seem to have all of the right answers. And it gets to a point where maybe we don't have all the answers, but we can figure it out, and being open to that and admitting that, and then asking them, what direction do you want to take this? We can handle whatever direction it is, but let's work together to get there. I think being able to admit that you don't have all the answers and you don't know what you're looking for and you don't know what you want is huge. And I think that takes a certain amount of confidence where you don't have to walk in and you don't have something to prove.
When somebody knows, when somebody believes that you know what they want and that they are understood, trust goes way up.
Yeah.
The defenses go down. You have more open, honest conversation. And that's really what I think we've been talking about here the last few minutes, right? It's just that getting to that point where you can really connect with somebody in a way that none of the competitors are gonna, because sadly, most salespeople in anything, they're all trying to sell the sizzle, and they're, all the reasons they think are important and all the crap that we've talked about. And there's very little connection going. You ever had anyone call you up? I know you have, but, man, you're way more money, but we really feel like you understand us. You're way more money, but we just felt there was a connection or a chemistry, or we could work with you. That's what happened there. They felt like on a deeper level, you're connecting with another person and really understanding, what they're after. And because of that, they totally trust you and they're willing to stroke a check with a couple more zeros on it.
Well, I also think on the flip side of that, maybe not stroke a check, but I think they're more willing to have the ability to have the dialogue with you about reducing scope, where most guys will leave the scope in, but they'll dilute the quality that the client's getting.
Great point.
That's the difference. Is that if that comfort level, they might come back and go, yeah, it's too high. But if it's really a good connection, they'll go, hey, how do we make this work? Again, they're asking you, going back to that help part, Bingo. How do we make this work? And it's like, you have to be the professional at that point. No ego, nothing to prove. It's just like, well, I think we can pull from here and here and not do these aspects, phase those out. That happens a lot with our conversations. It goes, hey, I can do all this right now, but we'll have to phase this section, and we'll be able to make it happen at this time frame. And they're like, yeah, that's what I needed. So you're in it together, not like, oh, I'm getting the most of their money. Like I had an old boss that was like all about getting the biggest check as soon as possible. And I remember I was like 20, and I'm like, you're getting the same amount at the very end, right? It's just you're doing it in an awful way.
Yeah.
Like it's like they always have the same amount of money to spend. How you do it and how you get to that finish line is more valuable to me than getting to the finish line. You get me? It's anyone can get to the finish line. My old boss was awful at it. He would murder people and throw people under the bus and step on their face to get to the finish line. But you needed every one of those people, and you needed them again for the next one. So like it's how you get there, and having empathy for a client that may not. Most of them don't take this. This is like their first time down the road.
Right.
There's only a few that, have gone down it. And usually if they have already, their guard is up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
do you ever find that when you get to the point in that conversation when they're saying, John, you're our guy. We know you're our guy. But we got to have a conversation about the scope. And then you de-scope it a bit, right? And you do the job, or, you start reworking it. You ever find that they end up walking themselves back up over where they were?
Yeah.
Originally?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you were willing to have that connection and that conversation with them.
It's funny.
They felt safe.
Like a lot of clients, depending on who is in charge of the money, you might do the design with one whole person of that couple. Mm-hmm. And then you have to have a whole nother dialogue with the money part of the family.
Right.
And they might have you do a few things that are like, hey, you know what? Pull the basement out. I'm like, all right. I remember we did it with Benny in Brookline. We closed the job with the wife. And then the husband was like, yeah, I understand the numbers. Like I remember I quoted 1.7 million the first day I met. That landed at like 179, like without the outside, all that. But like probably a month in, he was like, pull the basement. Let's just pull the basement. Let's pull the garage. And I turned to Benny. I go, this is just an exercise. So he feels comfortable that he knows that we know where the money's going in this project. It's not like it's in the spreadsheet. It all is. But it's like he just wants to know how easily we can pull that out. And if we're comfortable, I remember when I was younger, I would be like, you want to pull out the windows? well, I had slush in the windows. I can't pull the windows out of it. Like, that's me talking. Like, I put in a little, that number looked low, so I threw a little spice in there. That's a real good moneymaker for me. You want to pull that scope? And then you'd start fighting for that scope. And nowadays, I look at it and I'm like, pull the basement? Dude, pull the basement. Find out how much it is, pull that basement out, adjust the O&P, adjust the management, boom. Or don't adjust the management because we're still doing the same amount of stuff. That's kind of rolled in, baked into the project. So now if they pull it out, now it costs more management. Breaking that out, and then sure enough, 3 weeks later after we did it all, we were running the project at the same time, and they were like, you know what, throw it all back in. Right. It's like, so you have to know, don't take offense to that whole thing either. It's like, all right, well, they're spending that kind of money. Most of the time when you get into higher level jobs or even smaller ones, people really care where their money is going. They don't care if they have a slush fund or they sold a business. They still want to know where it goes, how on top of it you are, because that gives them confidence.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, John, knowing the exercise he ran you through to make sure that you knew where the money was going, like communicating that all the way through in the beginning. Like, I think of our pre-construction process, right, is that we try to set that target budget right in the beginning. And, if there's some sort of defined scope or a floor plan and elevation drawing, something simple, we can base off that. We're going to come to the table, and I always have the same conversation. We're going to price this out. We'll look at this. Here's our budget's $500,000, and we're going to look at it, and we're going to start de-scoping it and go line by line. And if we're at 600, we're going to add that column. I think Reisinger says the good, better, best, right? Yep. But just come to the table where it's like, hey, what you've designed or what you've drawn or what you've asked for is $650,000. But here's the $500,000 option, and what that means is that we're going to have to value engineer and reduce scope here, reduce scope there, and then typically in that same conversation we're saying, but here's a $550 option. Here's it sounds like it's going to be within reach, and you're getting 70% more. Mm-hmm. Like you're 70% of the way there. And it's to the same point of, being able to pull that out is being able to come to the table and giving them the option to be at their target 500 or spend a little bit more and understand clearly what that is. Yeah. And it's just, ultimately I'm listening a lot here, and it's just, it's all very, communication based. Huge. And that communication, you talk about being a vinyl window salesman earlier on and how you basically lied to them. Yep. And it's, that was the disconnect, is that, from a sales guy, you were selling, fake shit, and you were getting them to buy, and then you'd move on. Where to build a business or, even yourself with integrity, you need to sell but be super honest with it and be upfront with it and make sure that, they feel as though they're being listened to, number one. Mm-hmm. And then, and then you're coming back to the table as though, hey, I listened, here is, the price or the budget or the scope based on what I've been listening to. And when they see that and they see that and they can actually see and feel as though that they've been listened to, you're right. They'll probably write the fatter check. Yep. And it's not because you upsold them, but they've at this point taken that fictitious contingency fund that they had in their mind and said, hey, this guy's all in. He's listened. He knows what I want. Take that contingency fund that we had stored away, throw it at him, because he's listened. He's going to give us everything we want. We trust him. And it's, and I think that's where, at least from conversations I've had with other contractors, guys get confused. Is that, no, you're just upselling them. You're just selling. You're stealing from the client. Creep. Scope creep. You're every time you have a conversation, you talk about, oh, this would be nice, and it's only this much money. It's like, no, I'm listening to them, and they're telling me that they want that. So I'm coming back to the table and saying, hey, I'm listening. This is, we can absolutely do that. Here, there is an expense to that, and this is roughly what it is. And going back and forth, I think that's the, going in and just saying, hey, we should upgrade everything to walnut. That's scope creep. You know, and then, you know, but if they're saying, it would be great to have, you know, a darker floor. Well, we could do
what are my options besides the normal cabinet?
Right.
All my friends have white or all. You have to have those points. Like, for instance, going back to that grill station, the clients, all he's talking about is entertaining for every single space. Mm-hmm. So it's like when this grill gets put in, it's like, yeah, they don't have to put the TV in. I can value engineer that little setup I made earlier. They could put the TV in later. We could rough it in for $130. But it's like knowing that this is what they want. I think it's even more of a waste of money putting it in a place that doesn't get used a lot. Like, I relate everything to a pair of sneakers. If you buy a pair of sneakers and wear them every day, you've gotten your money worth. But if you buy them, wear them twice, put them in the closet, you know, then if you're going to use that grill and we're going to put in all the gas. To me, it's like the burden, the gas, the electric, the appliances, all the stuff I got to chase down, the mason, the top, all this stuff. If we're doing all that, you better rock that space all the time. I better get invited. Like we talked about today, should we put a bathroom in the pool house or do we put it back at the house? I'm like, there's less peeing in the pool if he's like, dude, Johnny's gonna pee less in the pool, we're gonna put it in the pool house. That was the client's
Dude, nobody's getting out to pee in the pool house. Everyone's going in the pool.
It's right, the outdoor shower. It's like all these little things that, and yes, I have to say, I tell the client this all the time, I live vicariously through them. Like, I don't get sticker shock to stuff. I just make sure that it makes sense, meaning if a client asks me a couple of different directions on a price point, I have to back it up. You get me? That's the biggest thing, is being able to back it up with solid information and go, no, I got these bids. Like, Tom, you asked me before, like, the client comes to me and goes, I really want to build with you. The trick to this is I can say, yes, we can go do that dance. I can do a rough budget on the same size house that they loved. Then they might go to a different architect over here and design something. I'm doing it right now. And it's like, then they bring back this other building that's not like the building we put a price to. And it's like, then they go, hey, you know, what's it going to cost? I'm doing it right now. And it's like, our budget was $1 million to build. Right now, it's $1.2 million. So it's like, I have this massive, heavy burden, which sounds crazy. I should not give a shit, but that's just not my personality. And I'm like, so I'm thinking of this whole thing. How would I want this to be presented to me? Well, how would this go smooth? How would I understand it the best? I'm like, I'm going to show them the drawings and the price for the initial talk. Then I'm going to show them the drawings and the price point, highlight what changed from the original drawings for the new design, and go, this is what's kicking you over the $170,000. You know, this is the difference. Here's the A and the B. This is what we originally looked at. This is what you designed and drew. Like, the family room is vaulted with oak, you know, arches. It's like these are obvious things, but it's like, I like to have it in my spreadsheet and then highlight it where you can go, all right, I got this, this, and this. I see that extra 170. Not be like, email the number and go, hey, you're high, and let me get back to my other 3 jobs I'm running. Like, you know, do you have the money or not? Are we doing this or not? Like, I don't know how you operate like that.
No, I mean it.
I think that being able to have that conversation with them, it's a pain in the butt, right? Having to go to them and say, hey, here's what you initially designed, here's what we have designed now, and then you have to go through and figure out where those differences are, because now you're pricing things twice because it's not the exact same. And then you're having to go to them and say, this is what's driving you over. But the good part is, at that point, now they can actually see where those costs are coming from. They trust that you're not just saying, hey, it's high, hey, you're $170,000 over. You're already putting in the legwork to show them why you're over. And then they can make a decision whether that's worth it at that point, which, I mean, it also depends at that point on how much your involvement is and how you're sure that you're doing that project and how much time you're going to put into this up front, being that this is all conceptual.
Yeah, I just think, like, to me, to me, it's almost like a due diligence, meaning I've already built these products a few times in my head. So, like, Tyler, like the 2 drawings, as you're saying that, I know exactly. It went from 33 windows to 44 windows. It went from 1 slider to 3 sliders.
But they don't know that.
I know, but my point is, to me, like, it's almost like seeing the Matrix and going, all right, here's the 9s instead of the 1s and 0s. You get me? So it's like having that, to me, it comes very easily to see that stuff, and then having that conversation with them going, hey, see these 12-foot sliders? Here's the price point on those. They're like $4,500 a piece without tax. Like, but having that conversation that casual, but that detail oriented, they're like, oh my God, I get this. Can we do 2 windows there instead? I don't know. I mean, I like the flow out to the backyard. You know, it's having those, you're not going, let me check. And I know that's a safety thing you can do, but if you're going to try and get that job, I feel like it's like my wife. I want to value every time we go on a date as much as I did the first time. It's the same now that when I got my first house, I want it to be, whether it's 40 houses in, it should be the same drive and passion and attention to detail that it was the first time. Because that's what's going to make it fun for me. Me being like, my relationship, great. You know, it's that whole thing. It's like, I don't want to get this thing to be numb to me, because if it becomes that, I don't want to be in the business.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the way that you've built your business. That's the way that you've established yourself. And I think that you need, like, that's who you are. And you can't stray from that much.
I don't know if I know how to.
No, and I think that that's just your business. And if that works for you and that works for your customers and that's how you operate, they should understand that. And that's just the path that you need to continue to go down, because that's your system. If it ends up not working at some point, then you make adjustments. But I think the only way that you get yourself really into trouble doing that, like, you need to have those conversations, but it's the amount of time that you're putting in up front that may not come back, you know? So you really have to have a good gauge on your customer and how serious they are, because you're putting in a ton of work up front that you may not get a return on.
You only need to do it once where you don't get paid.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, and then...
I did it 10 years ago on Beacon Hill. And I was like, I did the whole breakdown because they had a radiator that broke on the 5th floor of their brownstone. And then it flooded the entire unit. So they're going through insurance. They're like, oh, we need it broken down for insurance. I'm like, sweet. For the business I was running at the time, it was like, this is a huge whale for us. So it was like, I'll do the work. So I was like doing a bunch of other things at the same time, but hammered the whole thing out. They took the itemized budget, went back to the insurance, got more money, then hired the cheap guy to get more scope. And I was like, there we go. That should be a tattoo on my arm somewhere so I can see it every day on my forehead. And I'm like, I won't work with USAA ever again. Someone comes to me like, hey, I got this insurance job. I'm like, you're dead to me. Like, I'm just scarred forever.
Tom, when you said you had your painting company, or you were selling jobs for the painting company, and you guys were oftentimes so much more expensive than the other, what at that point, what was your response? I know that we talked about kind of when you're initially giving them that figure and then giving them a pause to kind of lead you, but I feel like a paint job has a pretty defined scope. And at that point, I feel like a lot of times people are seriously just looking at the numbers there. Mm-hmm. Is there a conversation or a follow-up at that point of people are like, hey, we got pricing in and it was here, 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 and here? Or was it just like, we have enough volume coming in that let's move on to the next one and not waste any more time on this?
Well, we always did a lot of follow-up, and, you know, we were always having conversations about why we were 18 grand and all the other bids were, 10 grand, you know what I mean? What we as a company got really good at was we took the focus off the paint job and we put it on the experience. That was truly, I would say, if there's a secret sauce to selling at a higher value, certainly you have to deliver higher value. You can't just be higher priced for the sake of being higher priced,
Come on, everyone does that now. It's like a trend. It's like a hashtag.
No, but I mean, if you're going to pay more money, if I'm going to go buy a BMW, I expect it to ride better than the Ford. It's that simple, and so we always, again, it came back to understanding what was really important to the client, and then we priced it accordingly. We had jobs that, a house was totally empty. The movers were going to be coming in, and speed was the motive. They needed it done before the moving trucks got there. And, or sometimes it was, we just had our hardwood floors refinished And I'm like, well, what's the worst thing that could happen on your project here? And they're like, you scratch my hardwood floors, I'll kill you. So we would price it accordingly. And then they would come back and they would be like, hey, you're X amount higher than everyone else. And I said, well, we have a lot of money in floor protection. Yeah, but that's a lot of money. I'm like, well, how much would it be to have to refinish the floors again?
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, yeah, let's go for it. So I think we kept bringing it back to the motive or the pain or the pleasure. There's an old saying in sales that, you contract around the pain or the pleasure. And so it was never about the paint job. And and listen, you guys all do phenomenal work, and there's so many amazing craftsmen that are out there in the world that I truly feel the best craftsmen are not making the most money, to be honest with you, because they haven't figured out the business side of it. They haven't figured out that they're in marketing and sales.
That's the key right there. You just said it.
Yep.
It wasn't about the paint job. You weren't slinging the paint.
Yep.
And it was about the mission. It was about the experience. It was about the vision that they had and behind what a good experience would be.
So then back to the very top of this, we talked about solving problems in business. Well, what are the top problems people have with contractors? They don't communicate well. They don't finish on time. They nickel and dime me. They surprise me at the end with a bill. I mean, there's all these different things. We just looked at all those things and said, let's be good at all that, and that's what we did. And rarely did I ever talk about the actual paint job unless, we got further into the psychology of selling and stuff. You start doing, some training on DISC assessments and personality assessments and things like that. You can kind of read what somebody is. If a guy's wearing like a name badge from work and it's an engineering firm, he's probably a high C on the DISC. So he's super organized, detail oriented. He's the guy creating the checklist at NASA, and so that guy, I'm going to approach much differently. I'm going to go, hey, Nick, would it make sense if we sat down and talked about the process of how we paint a room? He's going to eat it up. You know what I mean? And so there's so many things here, because that's what's important to him. That's part of his pain or his pleasure or his motive or whatever you want to talk about. But it's rarely about the job. It's usually about everything that surrounds the project. Like, you guys are charging what you can charge. And earlier I said they'll stroke a check with more zeros on it. It's not to be a bunch of greedy bastards. It's so that we don't have that pressure to rush to the next project, to get another deposit, rob Peter to pay Paul, and then you're on this cycle. We're on the hamster wheel all the time, instead of just being able to go, we're going to work with the right clients. We're going to be paid handsomely for it, enough to make a profit, have a great life for our team and our people, to be in business long enough, to stand behind our work. That's what's fair to the customer. And the cool thing is the customer, they don't have to hire you for that price. But I encourage contractors all the time. You have to fight for your value. And I see so many people that are amazing craftsmen that are making way less money than people who do crap work.
What do you mean? What do you mean by fight for your value?
Well, earlier we talked about we don't see ourselves as equals with the people that we're selling to. They called you. They reached out to you to solve a problem. And in fact, let's go out of business, and you're a human being, they're a human being. Okay. And this is just my world, guys. My world is I have dozens of conversations a week and groups I talk to and people I work with and my team works with. The amount of disrespect that comes back towards contractors from people. But that respect actually starts with us as the contractor. We don't lobby for ourselves. We don't advocate for ourselves. We don't want to talk about money. We don't charge enough. We don't do the work that we have to do to understand what our numbers are and what it really costs us to do a project. All these things combined, they beat you up because you got all these other third-party sites out there that are telling you what things cost. You watch a reality TV show and they're like, we remodeled this house in 45 minutes and it was $728. I mean, that's the reality that the consumer lives in, but they don't know what the average contractor does to bend over backwards, steal from their family, lay awake, stressed out at night, wondering how they're going to pay their damn bills and make their payroll. I mean, I just see a huge amount of lack of confidence from the contractor when they go into the business thing. They're solid on the craft, right? You guys can run circles around people when it comes to the craft. But now you're putting yourselves in this situation where you got to deal with the business side of stuff. That's where I see most guys go wrong.
And in which part of that, the sales, the marketing, the team, the leadership, the, operations, what, from your side of it, what do you think most of these, we'll use the word craftsmen, are failing at on the business side?
Well, I think, I called it the contractor fight because of the 6 inches between our ears. That's where everything starts. Is what do you really believe about yourself? What do you believe you're worth? And you are worth as much as the guy who you're building the house for. Okay, because I mean, let's just take a 30,000 foot view here. Look at the crap you guys have to be good at. Right? You got to know the trade. You got to be able to build a team. You got to be able to be a psychologist with your team. Then you got to be a shrink with your customer. Okay? You got to be good at math and the numbers. I mean, we can go on and on and on. There's so many skills here that you have to really knock out of the park, or you and your team do as a company, in order to be successful at this. There are so many moving parts in what we're doing, way more than most professions. And that's admirable, and that deserves money. And that I'm tired of fielding emails and DMs and stuff like that from contractors that go, I've been in the game for 25 years. I got a great reputation in town, and I don't have a pot to piss in. I have nothing to show for the 25 years of me running a business.
I think the biggest problem is that most people level up their skill level, but they don't level up their market.
Yeah.
Because they've finally accomplished that certain pool of people and who they work for.
Yep.
That as their skill level rises, they don't see it. I didn't see it. When I didn't see it till I left. I was running my own business. I remember I've said this a million times in the podcast, in Canton. It was a 2-car garage, knocked it down, added another 2-car garage with the pool equipment inside of it. Did my first ICF pour, whatever it was, pain in the ass. And then put a master suite above it and family room. I think I charged $275. I left a couple of years later, went and worked for another company, almost the identical addition, which is painful. It was like $590. And I was like, I remember looking at the spreadsheet going, oh, this is the same scope. I can handle this. Then I looked at the numbers and I was like, oh, you mother effer. Like, I just didn't know. That's why I was loved back then. Yeah. I was loved because I was a screaming hot deal. He got amazing quality and he didn't charge crap. And it's like, and that's what I look at now. It's like Nick, you said leveling up. It's like, my skill level's grown. I now need to find the right market. And then when you have different people saying, I want to build a house, they're not all the same people. I think when I was younger, like a deck is not the same deck across the board. Mm-hmm. Like in Newton, Wellesley, or Norfolk, they're completely different universes, but yet your proposal would be exactly the same. And it's, you have to look at it the same way. As if you were to spend money on, a Makita, then to a Festool, whatever it was, you have to do the same thing from writing on, a piece of paper to QuickBooks, or QuickBooks to a bookkeeper. You have the same tool. You get me? Like, it's just intersecting swapping them out, but that's what I think we all forget when we're in that bubble. You're like, oh, I finally mastered all this stuff on how to make it easy for myself, but then you don't get paid for it.
Well, look how much time it took you to learn the craft that you have now. Just think about that. John, you were talking about, shiplap, right? And cutting it right earlier.
Cutting it wrong, actually.
Yeah, but I was trying to make you look good there.
I know.
So we put so much investment into the actual skill of the trade, which is admirable and it's good and it's right, and there's pride that you should carry with that. Problem is most business owners, to answer your question, Nick, it starts with our mindset, number one, but then tactically, we don't put the same sort of commitment towards understanding the craft of running a business. Okay. It's, I mean, probably the biggest mistake I see across the board, other than being a wuss in the sales process, okay, is we don't take marketing seriously. The average contractor does not take marketing seriously. And I firmly believe, I don't care who you are, the minute you say, I'm going to have a business, and you put a website up and print a business card, you no longer get to be a craftsman first. Okay, that moves down the level of importance. Your number one job is to market and sell, because without oxygen coming into the body dies, and that's what money is. And I think it's your duty and your responsibility to get as much money as you possibly can, so that you can hire the best talent, so that you can stand behind your warranty stuff. You can be in business long enough to do that. You can afford training. I mean, I know so many people that have the heart to train their people, and they can't figure out why people keep leaving for better opportunities, but they're in a dead-end job because this guy doesn't know the business side. He's week to week, month to month, can never invest back into the team, and they don't see a future for themselves. So then a good craftsman bails on them. I mean, there's so many reasons here, but I think, man, you got to get your thinking right and understand that you're just not, you don't get to be a craftsman first anymore. And that's not a bad thing or a good thing. It's just a thing.
No, it's funny you say that, because that's, I always, when I explain how I started my business or who we are or who I am, I always start that I started as a finish carpenter, and I started a carpentry company, and then we started growing, and then I started hiring people, and it was once I hired someone that could, and I'm going to use air quotes, do what I did. He was probably better at some things than I was, and I was better at some things than he was, but I realized that I could hire people that gave a damn about what they were doing from the craftsmanship standpoint. Yeah. That's exactly where my focus shifted. I went from, I want to be a really great carpenter and do this forever, to I want to own a really great business. Mm-hmm. And that's when the shift in marketing changed, and it was like, I'm gonna absorb myself with how I should market my company. And I'm going to take all of this information and apply it as the best way I can. And, I think I've done a really good job at that, in the sense that I have an incredible team. I get to talk to incredible people all day, every day about, recruiting people. Mm-hmm. I get, John made the reference, I think 2 podcasts ago, I said, I want to level up, and it's every year. And John, you made the reference earlier about, how I'm, or maybe alluded to the fact that I'm more comfortable with that process, that initial sales process. But I would argue that I still go into that, really nervously. And I think a big part of that is because of the leveling up, of the fact that my jobs are getting bigger and bigger, and my clientele are getting more and more demanding. But that's what I'm striving for. I want to work with, I say this all the time, I want to work for clients that have borderline unrealistic expectations. And that's just, there's so many people that think I'm crazy for that, because, like, why would I want to work with clients like that? Just build a house and sell it. And sell it. Get into development.
People think there's more money in volume than there is.
And it's not even about that. It's the fact that a client is going to come to me and have these expectations where, I had a call with a client last week. We put quartz slab on a wall. 2 of them don't match. Like there's not an A and a B, so it's not book matched. So they took 2 slabs and they basically they do this. They basically line up 2 of the veins the best that they can to make it look, when you stand back, like it's continuous all the way through. And in the photos, looks great. 6 feet away, looks great. When you're in the shower and you're 6 inches away from it, it doesn't line up. It's like 3/16 off. And then you look closer and it's like, oh, that's not the same vein. And they get on the phone and he had mentioned it, and I'm like, listen, before you even go down the road, like, I'll rip it out. Like you have set that expectation right from the beginning of this project, is that your expectations are going to be unrealistic, and you want this to be as perfect as possible, and you're paying us to be that way. He's like, no, I don't want you to rip it out. I'm just saying, like, can we be a little bit carefuler and more careful in the kitchen?
Do you think that the pause would have been better for you right there?
Yeah.
Probably.
You could airbrush a vein on there. It's not even a real vein.
I'm just gonna conclude. So I did. I had talked to someone that can faux paint quartz stone and repolish it to blend. And I'm like, hey, I got someone out there. They're gonna paint it, and you'll never know. He's like, if I don't know, then I'm totally fine with it. I was fine with it as is. To your point, yes, I could have paused, and it probably would have been fine. But
I think you would. I don't think it would have been fun. I would have been able to learn more of what the situation was before I again, going back to when someone speaks, there's 15 ideas that are going through my head to be like, which one is it?
I don't think I reacted immediately saying I'll rip it out. When someone presents an issue, I do listen all the way through.
I was just asking, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It was very like I said. They're like, listen, we don't want you to do anything about it. We just want to call attention to it before we put the stuff in the kitchen. Because if it's if this happened in the kitchen, we just wouldn't be happy with it. So we're like, hey, we solved it on the kitchen. We're gonna go lay it out in the shop before it's fabricated. In the bathroom, I'm gonna look into my solutions. Worst case scenario, I will rip it out because it was very clear of the expectation, and we didn't hit. And
so how do you deal with that internally? That's with the client.
What do you mean internally?
Like, so for instance, there was one point in time where I would always go and meet the client at the stone shop, at the stone yard, and be like, pick a stone, blah, blah, put it on hold. Then there was a certain point where I was like, do I really need to go there for this? And then they would go meet Andrea, walk through it, and then it would then go to my fabricator, and then he would send off a photo of what the template looked like on top of the stone for approval. Again, you're at that 25-foot distance on this stuff.
Yeah.
And then the stone would arrive, and they'd be like, I don't remember that vein. I have zero leg to stand on at that point. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll fix it because you approved the stone, and it's really tough to put it back on the client. You can, like Sean would say, well, page 27, paragraph 6 on my contract says you went there and did this. I'm into the expectations and the experience, so now I go to that meeting with the client, and I point out and go, that stone looks beautiful. Are you cool with this little iron deposit? Are you cool with this? So now when that stone comes in 2.5 months later, whatever it is, I can be like, they go, I don't know about this. After they kind of huddle amongst themselves, husband and wife, and go, do you like that? I don't know if I like that. I don't remember.
You're diffusing the bomb before it blows up.
Yeah, but it's like, but that's the thing. It's like, I did try and give it away. Like, I don't really need to do this. And then as soon as it backfires, it's
but
like,
even at that case, it shows up, and the iron deposit's there, and now they've changed their mind, and they don't like it, right?
Well, that's a different thing. Now you're in that together. You're not in this together with that book map. You knew the expectations. It didn't hit a home run. That's now on you. It's one-sided.
Oh, yeah.
Now, when I go into that, or I've been there where a client goes, I don't remember that veining. Well, here's the photo from us at the stone yard. I put it in my notes with the dates and locations from when we picked these stones. And I go, this is, do you remember this? Not like, hey, you did this. You approved this. It's more like, do you remember that day? This is what we went over. And they go, oh, that's right. I'm like, what do you want to do? Do you want to pull this? But this is the exact stone. And then it takes them back to the time where they see all the other 15, pieces of loaf of bread from the slab that got cut. And this was the best piece. So it brings them back down that road where you're on the same page. You get me? It's never, I guess, Tom, going back, is you talked about money and getting money. I think I work my ass off, and so does the team, to bring an enormous amount of value. So I never have to ask for money. You get me? It's as soon as it invoices, because that's what tallies up for 2 weeks, they want to pay it as fast because that's what I'm giving them for service. But if you mess around, you dog it, you don't put into it. Like if I go in that meeting with the client next week and go, hey, yeah, you're $200,000 higher. They're like, what is it? Well, your design's different. Like, what am I going to get in return for that?
Right.
I'm going to get the same BS. I feel like I wasted their time. So I guess my point is I want to work hard enough that people just want to pay me, that it never gets down to a leverage game.
And you guys, I'm listening to you, and there is no doubt that you guys and the people that are listening to this are going to do the right thing, right? Like if you had to rip that thing out, you'd rip it out, right? In a heartbeat, because that's just who you are. And because you're about the experience. You're not after the quick buck. You're playing the long game. You're building a real brand, a real business. All you guys are. My point with the money is you have to charge enough up front. So when they go, well, I don't remember that conversation, or they, life just happens, something unforeseen happens on the job site, whatever it is, that that, hey, we could just make this right and we're still good. We're still going to turn a profit, because the job of you as a business owner is to be profitable. Like we're not in this to break even. And I think that's the thing is that's why I hit this drum so much in the fight, is there's so many contractors that are like, Nick, you're like, hey, if we got to rip it out, we'll rip it out. They're laying in traffic for their clients, doing whatever it takes. And they're left on the other end with nothing to show for it.
Right.
Other than a pat on the back going, you did such a great job. That's no way to build a life in a business. And, so
but on the flip side is if you're going to charge that amount of money, Nick, to put the spotlight on you, how do you charge that amount of money and still react to stuff? That's where I get hung up in this situation, is that if I'm going to charge X for profit margin and all this kind of foresight and experience and detail, should it ever get to the point where it actually hits the wall and it's installed?
Yeah, I mean, I think that
shit happens.
Yeah, and I think that it's also
shit happens. Yeah.
So, I mean, for example, I have a customer now who she needs to see everything. Like the job has dragged out. It's cost me money. Decisions still aren't made. And it's to the point where, like, I charged enough up front for it, and I kind of bit my tongue with a ton of stuff. But it's getting to the point now where, like, do you want a black ceiling fan or a white ceiling fan? I don't know. Okay, I buy both. They're sitting there for a week, and the electrician's coming out like, which fan do you want? And she's like, I don't know. I need you to hold them both up for me. And I'm like,
so you're buying both?
Yeah, I bought both for you.
No, I'm saying she bought both.
No, I bought both because I was like, if you can't decide, I'll just buy both. And then she needs me to hold them up. I was like, and now she's on vacation. And she's like, I'm away right now. And it's the type of thing where, how do I bite my tongue in that situation? How do I continue to put on a happy face? And like, I've accounted for a lot of things, but I haven't accounted for enough. I haven't accounted for every single decision that we've made being made again. Going to select stone and then making another trip to lay the stone out with her, and then wanting me to change that a week later. And it's like, I'm at the point of the job where I just want to be like, I'm fulfilling my contract and I'm getting the hell out of here.
Yeah. So this goes back to what I said earlier, Nick. I think, Nick, you asked me, what does it look like for us to fight for our value, right? And being equal, so you asked something along those lines. This is one of those exact situations. Now, I don't know your client and this and that, but I'm sitting here hearing from you, she feels that she can just do whatever the heck she wants to do, drag you along, have no regard for the stress it's putting on you and your team and the schedule and all these other things. That's what I'm talking about when we have to stand up for ourselves and advocate and have that honest to God conversation and go, hey, Mary, Mrs. Jones, whatever her name is, I want more than ever when we're done with this thing for you to feel ecstatic about how everything looks here. Okay. But is it okay if I'm honest with you right now? Yeah, you can be honest with me. I need a decision, because if I don't get a decision, I can't finish your job on time.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's what you can do it in a kind manner, but still very direct. And that's where I see so many guys go wrong. And they just, because they're afraid to piss the customer off, then they're going to hold money, or they're not going to give me a good referral or whatever it is. And and again, I keep bringing it back to this, but it's this simple. It starts between your ears, believing that you deserve the same respect and your team deserves the same respect that you're giving other people. And that's what exactly a good partnership is.
You continue to bite your tongue and you continue to give stuff for free and you continue to not upcharge because you want the referrals, you want the architect. The word to go back to the architect is it was a great experience. But what ends up happening is that leads to somebody taking advantage of you and not valuing any of your time because now you're not valuing your time. So however many free trips and free design service and free meetings after work, they just expect that now. And then, they're paying you, so they expect you to do that. And that's what you've always done. And it gets to the point of the job where you're like, all right, I can't do any of this for free anymore. And then you could almost sully that entire experience that you've done so well to kind of uphold, and now you're going to throw that out the window because you're at the point of the job where it's just like, I can't do it anymore. We have to close this out. And I do feel like at that point it also feels as though they don't value what you do and they don't value your time, and a lot of times they don't value you as it's like, hey, we handed you money, we're paying you, you're indebted to us with your services.
Right.
Where it's like, come on.
So, and to me, this is not your case specifically here necessarily, so I'm not picking on you, but like I look at this and I go, this is preventable in the sales process.
Yeah. Okay.
So, hey, Tyler, I know we're all happy right now. We're about to come to an agreement on this project. I just want you to know, because we're all happy now, right? We're in a good mood.
You're in the honeymoon.
There's most likely, I've been doing this a long time, work with hundreds, thousands of clients. There's going to come a time in the project that I might have to demand a decision from you. And I'm going to need it in order to keep things on track. Are you okay if I turn the heat up now and then in order to help you get what you want? It's
the delivery. You're setting
like,
that.
In order for me to deliver all the things that you just said, so we go back to the motive now, right? Go back to their motive. You said you wanted this. You said you wanted to entertain your friends. You wanted it done by Labor Day. You want blah, blah, blah. Whatever all that motive is, when you understand the motive, now I ask permission. Are you okay for us to have some uncomfortable conversations now and then in order for me to keep this project on track? Because if I don't have decisions by the time I need decisions, I got to charge you more money.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you right now, when we have to charge you more money, it's going to hurt. I'm using language. One of my buddies, a crazy successful remodeler, did. He was like, the minute we sign this thing, if there's any changes, you're going to bleed from your eyeballs if we have to make them. That's how expensive they're going to be, because they're going to, it's this, you guys know, it's this crazy domino effect. You guys do what you do and command the money you do and deliver the experiences you do because you're controlling the process. And the minute you can't control the process anymore, you're screwed. And so we have to be stronger up front. I think of the knee surgeon. All right. Knee surgeon comes into the operator, the room. He's like Top Gun pilot, right? He's like, this is what we're going to do, Nick. You're not going to eat here. You're going to take this medicine. You're going to get this much sleep. We're going to do this. And then after the surgery, you're going to do this. He has all the confidence in the world saying, this is how it's going to go. Why? Because he's the damn expert. And that's what we are. You guys are the expert. Tyler, you're the expert on this thing, And so that's what I'm encouraging you guys to do, is step up and be the alpha, step up and be the alpha. They came to you because they had a problem that's rooted in pain or pleasure. It's that simple. And if you want the problem fixed, then you got to listen to me.
Well, I think part of it is delivery. I mean, when I was younger, I used to say, you know what you get from me. You like it or not, it is what it is. Mm-hmm. And then as I got older, I realized, no, it can be how I tactically say it.
Right.
So like Tyler, you could say that and say, hey, it's going to cost you money to make this decision. What we usually say is, hey, at a certain point, if you can't make these decisions and the email's gone from regular, font to boldface to highlighted boldface, that we need to probably bring in a designer, which that's me saying it's going to cost more money.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's me. And I mean, you have to have a couple people to do that, but usually that's all that's needed, Tyler. For a lot of those is like, hey, we're at the point now where you need to bring a designer in, meaning shit will get off the pot, and that might bring them to come to the table without, you can do the crass thing and just say, hey, bleed from your eyes. And I find that if I can be a little bit more tactic, because same thing, a lot of what I do is how I want to be treated. And I want to have that same kind of come at me with a casual kind of, shot across the bow. I don't need a shot between the eyes. Yeah.
Don't mistake advocating for yourself and being the alpha as being harsh and rude. It just means you're confident. Tyler, how many homes or projects have you done in your career?
Like 4. I don't know. It seems like too many.
Lots, right?
Yeah.
Lots. And so, how many have they done? 4.
You would think that it would be more than this customer has been an experience, and like I knew that going in, and I've managed that throughout the process. But as things are buttoning up and coming to a close, I'm speeding up and she's slowing down, because it's like, oh my God, I have to make these actual decisions. And it's at the point now where I think that customers towards the end also feel like they're losing you. Mm-hmm. So you're going to be
separation anxiety.
Yeah, you're going to be gone syndrome. And they want to make sure like that and the thing for me is I don't need you to make sure that everything's 100%. That's what I do. If you're here or not here, I'm going to be doing the same thing. But I've actually had multiple conversations with this customer doing that. And it's funny because she actually responds very well when I end up being firm and saying, hey, we need a decision by this date. If not, it's going to drag but oftentimes it seems as though those conversations are coming through frustration, which probably can be perceived wrong, and it would be better if they were not maybe coming in the heat of the moment, or the conversation was not while I'm sitting there so frustrated because I'm unpackaging 2 colored fans and holding them up against the ceiling and taking pictures to send to her. I think that it's almost like if I were to step away from it and have that conversation when it's not actually happening.
As we're having this conversation, I'm thinking other things through the years. Really, when you start your own business and you want to be successful, it really comes down to mastering the art of being a great communicator. And that's from everything from the motive that we've talked to, and empathy, and even like the bleeding of the eyeballs thing that my buddy would use. That was him. That was who he was, but it wasn't in your face. It was humor based, because he was just like a fun guy, and that's how we got along with his clients. So you got to be yourself. You got to be who you are. But I think we all have to be masters of communication. And they're also paying us to see what's around the bend. Like the ceiling fan thing. It's at some point, we're going to need this decision. So you got 10 days. I need a decision.
Yeah.
When you really need 14, but you give her 10. And I think that, again, that's what they're paying us for, is to make the experience less stressful and all that other garbage. But it's all rooted in communication and making another human being feel heard and understood. And, John, to your point of, hey, Mary, do you think it might make sense for us to bring a designer in here? I can tell you're struggling with this. You affirm that. You affirm it. I get it. It's
that night, Blair, I'm colorblind.
Yeah.
And I'm colorblind to style when it comes to lighting, so that's out of my pocket.
I stripped a staircase 3 times in my first year of business, working for a colorblind attorney. Oh my God. Anyway, lost my tail on that one.
So with what you just said, how much of it does defining success have to come into play? because success to some is making money and having high turnover. Like, what comes first? Accomplishing and understanding the craft, or defining your success?
Well, we start a business. I think a lot of times we start a business to survive. I know I did. My number one priority was feeding my family at the time. I had, I was with my ex-wife at the time, and we had a 2-year-old kid. And all I cared about in the beginning was feeding them and taking care of them and meeting our needs. And I guess if you think of like Maslow's pyramid, right? It starts with the basic stuff, and as you go higher up, as those needs are met, you get more into fulfillment and some things like that. I mean, Nick, I hear you talk about craftsmanship, and I can see it in the DNA of your company. That's who you guys are. So whatever you've done for your culture there, I can see that fulfillment and pride and integrity and all those things are a big part of that. I think you got to get to a point in your business where you have to. I made this mistake, and I've seen a lot of people do this. You start comparing yourself to other people in your industry and who are held up on a pedestal, and you start making that success instead of taking the time to go, okay, what do I really want out of this? If you're a guy that wants to do trim carpeting and do $300 to $500 grand a year, put 150, 200 grand a year in your pocket, and take 4-day weekends and go on your boat and this and that, and that's successful, and you can bank some money and have time with your family and all that other stuff, then you're successful. I define success as if you're getting what you intentionally want to get. That's success. And so I think one of the biggest mistakes that we make is we look to others who have benchmarked things in our industries and compared ourselves to them without first going, what do I really want? Like earlier I shared that, I coached high school football for many years. That was part of my success, of being able to have the freedom to do that. I don't know what comes first. I think, if you're guys, you can certainly start a contracting business and not know the trade. I could start a carpentry business tomorrow and never have been a carpenter, and I could probably be pretty successful at it because I believe I would look for people that are way better at stuff than I am, and bring them in. So I think it's that reflection. It's just going, what do I really want? There's a certain amount of money you make, and then once those needs are met, now you start looking to having an impact in the world. You start looking at fulfillment, happiness. You start defining it in different ways. You start thinking about legacy. I think it's just the season of life you're in. I mean, success to somebody who's just lost their job, has no savings, has little mouths at home to feed. Success to them is going to be much different than it is to me. I'm just in a different season of life. So I think all those things kind of are a mishmash of it. I don't know. Wish I had something brilliant to say.
That would have been a way better end. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, Tom, with respect to your time, we know you get a run, but really appreciate you hopping on with us.
I appreciate you guys having me, man. You guys are some good dudes, man. Just, we've never had it. I've texted you guys before, and Nick, you were on my show before a little bit, but it was cool to just hang out and shoot the breeze with you. And
we should do it again.
Yeah.
I feel like we, with what you bring to the industry and what, I love your no bullshit attitude and your aggressiveness on social media, which I think is awesome. I think you posted a video about the haters or something like that.
Well, we're actually posting that. What's today? The 23rd, right?
Yeah.
June. I'm posting it. It's going live in about a half an hour on our YouTube channel, Contractor Fight TV. It's like a 20-minute video in response to some of my haters. And there's a guy named Vinny who keeps ripping on me. His name's Vinny DeLuca. So we'll give him the spotlight here.
Yeah.
Vinny.
Yeah, Vinny. So I think I'm going to make a shirt that says "I love Vinny, I heart Vinny," and I'm going to start wearing it on my videos. But he, so he's very offended by many of the things I say and all that. And he keeps saying he's done, but then he'll respond and reply to the next video every time.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny. So this 20-minute video, like 10 minutes is Vinny. It's devoted to all Vinny's comments. But man, I'm passionate because I've been there, man. I've been bankrupt. I've been in a situation where I didn't take a vacation with my family for 10 years because I didn't have the money, because my head wasn't right. And I remember going on vacation, first time in 10 years, I go on vacation. I literally had to tell my family, don't get the large ice cream at this gourmet ice cream place that was in this tourist town we were at. And I can't remember, either I got like a generic frickin' vanilla extra small, or I didn't get anything at all because I wasn't sure my card would work. I've been at the gas pump going, God, I hope this works. I've been taking out prospects to lunch, and the bill would come. And I remember I would get up and go to the bathroom before they'd bring the bill, and I would try to pay it away from the table in case the card got denied. And we're bringing in, lots of money, and I'm standing there going, everyone's getting paid but me. And so that's where a lot of this stems from. And also I look at the stress that we put ourselves through, we put our families through, because we don't fight for our value. And that's where my fire comes from with this, is I want people to win. Whatever winning means to you, I want you to win. But man, what was that old song? I got 99 problems. I'd love for every contract to be like, I got 99 problems, but money ain't one of them. And when you make enough money, a lot of other things are smaller because you can afford to fix them. If you suck at systems and the office stuff, when you make enough money, you can hire somebody to do it. You stink at marketing. When you make enough money and you charge enough, and you're a good leader and all that, you can write a check and you can pay somebody who's kick butt at marketing to market your business. And then it gets you off that hamster wheel and you can actually have a life. I mean, it's funny this time of year. I know you were trying to wrap this up and now you got me going. So you can cut me off if you need to.
No, it's
We're
you.
wrapping up. We're wrapping up for you, man.
For you.
All right. Well, I'm good. 'Cause she hasn't poked her head down here yet saying, hey. So summertime, I always get like really emotional about summertime and 4th of July, because when I started out, I was always working on those holidays. Like I remember driving in my piece of crap beater Ford Econoline 350 or whatever the heck it was that I bought from my uncle for $1,100. It was this ugly blue van. We put shelves in, and he threw a 24-foot ladder in for me as a bonus. And I'd be driving through these neighborhoods to go stain that staircase that I lost my tail on that I was telling you about earlier. And I'm driving through these neighborhoods and I'm seeing all these people in their backyards enjoying a day off, knowing I'm going to be going and I'm going to have stain all over me all day. I'm going to be spraying lacquer and all this stupid crap. And I remember thinking that I would never be in a position to be like that. And it wasn't until I made a commitment to get uncomfortable, go into the things that I had fear around, put myself in situations that were going to cause me to grow, and then intentionally find people that were always way smarter than me. It really wasn't that hard to do. Okay. But I started leveling up the people I would hang out with, and this new thinking just rubbed off on me over time, And so, I mean, I remember sitting at a toll booth in this beater 74 Cutlass I had. I just got out in the Marine Corps, and I was staining, of course, and I'm all full, because my uncle I worked for my uncle. My uncle did all this new construction work, and stain and sealer and varnish and all that garbage, and it's just caked on me. And I'm sitting in my car, didn't have air conditioning. It was like frickin' July or August outside of Chicago. It was humid. And I look over, I'm actually writing a book, and this is the intro of the book. It's funny. And I see this guy, I think he's in a Mercedes or something, and he had like perfect hair. He had an earpiece in, and he was clean, and he was in a nice shirt. And I remember just looking over at him, and I won't use all the language that is in my book, but I'm like, I hated the guy. Like, I wished him dead. I hated him. And I hated him because he represented a level of what I thought success was. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm not saying I want to be some turd in a suit driving a Mercedes right now. I'm just saying that I was just like, well, I don't know, it just wasn't my world. And I hated him for it because I never thought I could be that guy. And so that's a lot of what drives me, you guys, is I want people to win. I want people to avoid the mistakes I made. I mean, I'd take my family on a vacation. I couldn't afford ice cream, went bankrupt. A lot of those pressures created a really, really crappy foundation for a marriage that ultimately failed. You know, I mean, I go on and on. I mean, I learned the most by getting my face kicked in, unfortunately. And so I'm just trying to help guys. You know, you could solve that money problem. Certainly money is not the most important thing in the world. It's your relationships. Okay. That's hands down. But the money box, when it's not checked, puts so much undue pressure on all those other relationships.
Right. It makes it hard for you to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Even the good parts. Tom, I'm right with you. I've been at those. My wife will never know when I was dating her that we went on vacation from college, and I had that exact issue where I was like, dude, is that going to work? It was right after college, whatever it was. But I'm like, same thing. It's like, which card is good? Yep. And it's like, it makes you panic because like maybe that person didn't pay you. That was your last draw, which was your profit back in the day because you did it on milestones. All these things that's what people told you back then is what worked. And no one told you that what to do if they don't pay you. I remember I used to tell people all the time that I met because I did this where I would, meet the next client and want to befriend them and be like, yeah, this guy screwed me at like 12 grand, blah, blah. You just painted the picture for them to screw you.
Yeah.
Like the thing I tell people now is, dude, tell them you get paid every single time. Like never bring that cloud of doubt into the situation where, you might want to talk about that and be like, oh, you get that payment. You're like, the last guy didn't give me this. Last guy, made me jump through all these hoops. And this guy's like, after 2 of those stories, he's like, you know what? Guess what I'm doing at the end? Yeah. They never have thought about it. Out of all the seeds to plant, that's not the one you need to.
Yeah, I'm going to drag him out.
Yeah. Yep. And the same thing is like when I didn't have a bookkeeper and I was the guy doing the books, it took me forever to realize that, you know what? I just need to tell people, hey, Susan's all over me, my bookkeeper. Susan didn't exist.
Yeah.
Okay? Make a fake email about Susan, your bookkeeper, and then send the emails about billing from her. Create an identity for someone else to take that beating that you're uncomfortable with and be like, hey, you're 30 days.
I had a fake office manager named Julie.
Right? See? How awesome is that? And it's like, it gives you a little bit of separation from that thing that you're not comfortable with until you're comfortable with it. Or until you can get that person where it's like, I don't know. Like I do it now when I tell my guys, I'm like, dude, tell them that I want it. Tell them that Johnny's all over me about this. That and now it's like, you know what? To a lot of guys that are one-man shows or two-man, be like, dude, make up Karen. Karen's like that new identity.
Karen's
like
in the office. Johnny, listen, man. Karen's in the office. She's gonna be all over me if I don't come back with a check this week.
Right?
So can you hook me up here? Listen, it's a here's the other thing I've learned about contractors. I truly believe that we are some of the greatest people on the face of the planet. Like hearts of gold. I mean, you guys could each probably share 10 stories of guys that work for you or other business owners that you know or whatever of how they want to give to their communities, how they're stepping up, helping people. They're the first guy to crawl under a car in a suit on a hot day to help somebody change a tire. Like, that's just who we are. We're people like, and I hear people all the time are like, man, I want to build tiny house community for veterans in my area, homeless veterans, or I want to give to St. Jude's, or guys, you can't do any of that if you ain't making money. And if you ain't getting oxygen yourself and taking care of mama and the little ones at home, and all that, you're going to have a hard time fulfilling all that other giving that you want to do in the world. And so I'm not, just today on our team call in the Contractor Fight, I had my team together and we were talking, about 15 minutes, we all went around and shared, not a bragging way, but just this prideful way, a good pride way with us as a team of all the people that we have helped in the past week where we were just able to push a button and donate some money because like stuff just has been flying at us. And it's just, I really believe that's the intention of most people. And I think you get the most fulfillment when you're giving, but you can't give if you don't have.
Right.
I mean, listen, I got guys that I'm thinking of a guy right now does 1.3 million a year, specialty contractor, only paid himself 38 grand in 2019 and has $350,000 worth of debt.
Wow.
Okay. Why? Because he's a nice guy.
Dude, you're stressing me out right now. I can't do this.
He's a nice guy. And he would do anything for anybody. Yet he's left holding the short end of the stick because he didn't do what we talked about earlier. He's got the craft down, but he hasn't put the time into educating himself and leveling up his skills to be a better business guy. And it's a skill that can be learned. It can be trained. You guys all know this. You've been in the game long enough. I mean, that job you did for what, 275 that they did for 590, that was your MBA, man. Right? That's what it was. It was like the colorblind lawyer I sold as this paint job. It was the first, what I thought at the time was a big job. I sold for 28 grand. Cost me 45,000 to do it. I should have charged 100 for the job, based on my mentality now. It should have been $100,000 paint job.
Right.
And it destroyed. He called me on frickin' Christmas morning at 7 a.m. to bitch. And you know what's worse than a client calling you Christmas morning at 7 a.m.?
Not much.
No, answering. That's what's worse. Okay? Because the look you get from your woman, not a good look. No. So.
You know what's funny is bringing that back to that project in Canton, Mass. that I did. I remember I was sitting at the table, and clients, we didn't talk about this, I think sometimes they test you to a point where they know that you're a yes man, and they know they want to leverage that. I remember that same client I did that job for, he goes, but didn't we have all, like we're halfway through, maybe 3/4. He's like, didn't we have all replacement windows in the quote? And like a yes man would be like, oh yeah, we'll get to that. And I remember I said to him, I'm like, we didn't, but I'll get pricing on it. And I was so proud of myself back then. I was like, I didn't just say yes. I didn't just eat whatever it was, 15 grand worth of vinyl windows back then. But I was real close that I probably would have done that before. Well, I'm like, that was your perspective? That's okay. I should value that more than I value what I thought and what I took out of that. Because, I've been at many meetings where a client will be there, I will be there, and someone else, and there's 3 different takeaways. Yeah. No one's walking away with the same takeaway. So I used to chalk it up that maybe that we joke about not being the smartest person in the room, but yeah, that was a thing for me. Where it was like, maybe I said that at some point. So that's what makes me so detailed now about everything I do with notebooks and all that, where someone says to me, hey, I didn't say that. And I'll be like, yo, not like it's chapter 25 of my contract, but it's like, but I did have a note on the 25th with a sketch of what we talked about. Am I wrong? Like, just kind of like, I'm cool with being wrong, but like, just want to know where we're at. Cause that's where we drove the truck down. We went down that lane. He's getting a look.
You tell.
Giving it away.
I was like going 5. There was a guy named Gary. We did this basement for him. I worked for this basement remodeler. We did probably $500,000 a year with this guy who did these basements, and built him this bar. They built him this bar. We had to come and finish the thing, and he was out of town. And he called me the afternoon he knew we were putting the final coat on the bar and all this other stuff. And he's like, how'd it turn out? And I said, it turned out all right, but I stripped it. He was like, what? I said, I stripped it. He says, why? I said, because I wasn't thrilled with it. It wasn't our best work. I don't know what happened here, but I'm gonna be here, for the next couple of days and make sure that this comes out the way you and I both know this thing needs to come out. And I was only able to do that because I charged enough money. Do you know what I mean? And what happens is most guys, they do that and they haven't charged enough money. And now that job that you plan to get a 55, 60% gross profit on, now you're getting a measly 35, okay? Or a 15 or some garbage like that. And that one move was probably one of the best marketing moves I could have ever made, because I looked at it as a marketing move.
Right.
That guy turned into a source of referrals for 10 years. He had us back every year to do probably 10, 15 grand worth of painting. He owned multiple properties and things like that. So again, back to what I said earlier, when you charge enough, you can deliver the best experience for people.
Right.
You know?
Do you think you would have gotten the same referral if you knocked it out of the park the first time?
No.
And
if I would have knocked it out of the park?
Yeah. The first time.
If the quality was the same, he would have been thrilled, but I think this took it to the next level.
Okay.
Because he knew that I just owned it. I was like, Gary,
you're solidifying integrity.
Yeah, the stain looked cloudy to me. I don't know what the hell happened that day, but it was like a cloudy finish to it. And I
think
it.
to John, your point earlier, it's like, if we're charging enough, should the stone have not ever hit the wall anyway? It's like, it's almost similar. It's like, if it hit the wall and it was perfect, it would have been that's what's expected. But when it's not perfect, because shit does happen, what's the reaction to it? How does this get fixed? Mm-hmm. And that is, the source of, referral.
You guys use the word perfect with customers?
No.
No. Okay, good. Yeah, that's like the kiss of death right there, man.
Excellent. Sure. No. Perfect.
Yeah.
No.
Once we have the job, I try not to use the word no.
Yeah. Magazine worthy. That's better than perfect. This will be magazine worthy.
Definitely on the cover.
I use the sure. This is gonna be like your playlist when you forget to put it on, and every time you look at it, you listen to the song, you're like, oh, I love this song. Next song comes on, you're like, I love this song. That's every room. I paint that picture. I'm like, you walk in the next room, you're like, dude, this room's awesome. Then you get the next one, you're like, no, this one's better.
Yeah, we had a woman who she had us paint this foyer. It was $3,000 or whatever to paint the walls in the foyer, and she signed our color selection sheet. She signed, the color, the sheen, everything was on there, right? And she walked in at the end of the day. It was about 2:30, 3 o'clock. My crew was cleaning up. She walked in, and my crew leader said, her name was Sandy. He goes, Sandy, what, how do you like it? And she just looks around. She goes, it's nice, and so this is the benefit of making money, by the way, guys, is that you can invest in training and have good people like my guy here I'm telling you about, because we had trained him, had weekly meetings and trainings, how to communicate and all this other stuff. He said to her, I get the sense that you don't love it. She goes, yeah, it's just different than what I thought. And she says, did you guys use a different sheen? He's like, pulled out the can, pulled out the color selection, showed her, it was the same. She's like, wow, I just thought it would be different. And he comes back to the office the next day. I said, how'd it go with the job? And I didn't know any of this at the time. He says, yeah, this is what we ran into. I said, well, what's the next move? He says, oh, we took care of it. He says, I went and got a different sheen, put another couple coats on it, and she loves it. She's happy. She gave me a hug and she was crying at the end of the job.
Like that's the move.
That's the move.
That's the move.
And he just charged her for the paint because all the prep was done. Everything was covered. You guys know it's quick, right? But that doesn't happen if you're not charging enough money in the beginning. And say that didn't happen, it doesn't mean that you took advantage of them, because again, it was their choice to pay you or not and to agree to the contract. Okay. But what I'm saying here is delivering a great experience and going that extra mile and all that stuff that we call it is much easier when you've priced the job properly. That's what I want to encourage guys to do.
I agree with you. I think the other part that's missing there is reading the client. Mm-hmm. Like I try and teach my guys that all the time, that I watch everyone's eyes, even my painters, my tile guys. When we walk into the room, I'm not looking at the wall. I'm looking at what they're looking at first. And then I'll look over and be like, oh, so that's the spot that they don't like. That's the spot that we need to focus on. And even today I walked in there and I pulled up and he actually got out of his truck, the tile guy, and was like, he's like, I'm going to walk you in. Like he's all excited to show off his stuff. And I'm like, great. I walk in and he goes.
Standing in front of a corner that you can't see, right?
No. He literally was standing there. I'm looking at everything and I'm just quiet, just taking it all in like, okay. Yeah. And I'm like, not okay and like a boss, like no reaction. And he's like, yeah, those bottom two, I'm going to take those out tomorrow. But I just left them there for now. There's a gap. I get it. And I'm like, no worries. I know you will. Like it's like to Nick's point, stuff happens and that when the overall scale of the day, I expect that there's going to be flaws from him, but they're easy corrections. Nick, I'm not saying that to pry at you. I'm more thinking about in my mind, like, where would I have to have caught that? Like, where would that have been where I should have, buzzed around more like a bee? Like, what point was it? Obviously, when it was getting set, no. So, like, and I worry about that not so much with me. Not saying that as an ego thing, but it's like when my guy should be there. It's like, have they learned from each guy where they need to focus on?
Right, and it's like that's exactly it. It's like regardless of the outcome here, like whether we paint it, we rip it out, or it stays, we talk about it. And it's like, hey, this was an issue. The client brought it to our attention. Going forward, we lay out the seam, or we go to the stone shop and make sure that the seams line up, And as I'm saying this out loud, I'm realizing that we had this happen with my other project manager. This is Nick's job. Mike's job, same thing. A sink showed up and the veins didn't line up. And Mike, it was being installed and he caught it. And, immediately he knew, and he's been with me longer, and he's been, so he knew that if I showed up, it would have been an issue. And I did. I showed up, and they left it there. I'm like, hey, what's going on? They're taking it out tomorrow. I'm like, all right.
To me, it's like, that should have been a text. Like, to me already.
To me?
No. To me, like, I look at it like what you're saying. Oh, I had a point to it. But it's like, we should be aware of that. Meaning that it shouldn't, like, I really feel like a lot of times, like, for instance, today I walked into a job site, we're turning it over, and we have that really dark graphite ceiling, and I walked in, and it's funny, the painter's van is parked in a certain way that the white van, the sun is behind the building, and it's coming across the front, hitting the white van, and reflecting back into the house. So that ceiling, most of the time, has been fine. I walked in, and I'm like, what's the deal? And he's like, oh, I'm going to paint that again. I'm like, there's no drop set up. Like, there's none of that set up. Like, would Mike that time, would he have flagged it? You get me? Like, so then I said to the guy,
no, he did. I'm sorry. He did. Yeah. He did flag it. And when I showed up when I went to say something about it, it was already in motion to be replaced.
Yeah. So I guess I read that as you texted saying, hey, what's going on with this?
No, I showed up like literally the hour after it got installed, and I was like, hey, Mike, what's going on? And he basically interrupted and said, no, they're taking it out tomorrow. I rejected it.
My other thing is, like, as we grow our businesses, and when you're a 1 or 2 man show owner operator, you take a lot of the heat, meaning you're immediately in connection with that client. Okay. Correct. Then when you start to get people underneath you, you're still taking that heat, but the guys that are actually implementing these pieces of the puzzle don't feel any of that.
That's the communication. I got the call from the client for the stone in the shower, and I called Nick, and I'm like, hey, just so you know, this is what's going on. This is what I told them I would do. These are the steps I'm going to take. Let's see if we can fix what's in place. Otherwise, we will take it out. And for the other $40,000 worth of stone we got going in, make sure every one of them is checked before it's installed.
Yeah, I guess I used to freak out, like, when I had a client meeting coming up. I would get there either the night before and sweep everything up and make it presentable, so that way I felt comfortable with the job site. So now when I walk into a meeting, that if I'm handling it and it hasn't been cleaned up and if someone else is running that job at the moment, then how do they feel that burden that it looks like trash? It's not a good representation of us. So now I'm like, you know what? I want you to run that meeting. I want you to have direct connection to a fail point in the system, and not having pride where someone judges you on the little things when you walk in.
It's training, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just
we used to. There was a point in our business, we were doing hundreds of jobs a year. We used to have. We finally got to the point where our crew leader had to do the walkthrough with the customer. It's like, and then they started hearing the things the customers were saying and this and that. You know what
Direct,
I mean?
Yeah.
But like, shoot, you said something. It made me think of something. Oh well, I don't know. Another moment of brilliance is gone. Damn it.
Happens to me all the time.
Yeah. Oh no, the whole thing with the veins and stuff not matching up. That's something I think it's a process thing in the sales process, or in the pre-job process and this and that, where you're making selections. What if you went third party and you said, hey, Joe and Mary, I want to share a little bit about, some things that sometimes become an issue here. You know, we'll go here and we'll pick this and it'll look great. Sometimes the veins don't match up. It looks great in a picture. It looks great 15, 20 feet away. It looks great 6 feet away. But there was this time, you're going third party now. There was this time that the guy's in the shower and that's when he saw it and it really bothered him. What, you know, I'm trying to think of a question here to set it up, but basically what do you think we should do to make sure that you're getting with what you want here? Is that something that's going to really drive you crazy? And I'm butchering the question right now on the spot, but I'm sitting here going, you go third party, share about other experiences. Is that going to be something that's going to drive you crazy, or are you good as long as
their tolerances at that point?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
But at the same moment, it goes back to that thing of if they're going to pay this level of quality and due diligence that gets put into the job, what's the assumption that they're getting? Not bringing in doubt. You know, I guess that's what I worry about is that, yeah, stuff's going to happen. That's part of the nature of the beast, without saying. Absolutely happens, and obviously we're going to correct anything that happens. It's just I like to really understand. I guess every single day I have a couple courses of action on how things would go smooth, how things could go really off the tracks, and then what possibly could be happening that I have no idea about. And I walk into the job every day with all three of those and wait for the trigger to see which way we're going.
Yeah.
I like bringing up the bomb before it blows up. That's, you know, personally my way of doing things. Like, because I think you're acknowledging, like, construction, there's problems. Things, you know, don't always flow in the field perfectly, you know. But I can see your point too, going, I don't want to put this shit on their radar. You know.
Right.
So I guess that comes back to being a good communicator and understanding people.
I try to manage the bombs beforehand.
Yeah, that's I mean, like, hey, we really need this done by Labor Day weekend. You know, what do most guys do? Oh yeah, no problem.
Right.
You know, instead it's call a timeout and go, well, hey, Nick, let's pretend it wasn't done by Labor Day weekend. What would happen then?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think it depends on the price point. I think most of us live in the universe that you get 2 out of 3. You know, pick 2, quality time or budget. And it's like, but at a certain price point, you can do all 3. At a certain price point, when the job's priced correctly and there's certain things that are going the right way, you can do all 3 and there's no compromise. You can hire 2 crews to do this. And it, like I'm talking about Vana, they pride themselves on never missing a date. So they could have 4 different of the same subs on one job. They'd bring in 5 managers to do that because price is now not an option. So you get all 3. They did like one of my old PMs told me they did like $22 million in 3 months because the client was away for the summer. And I'm just like, broke it down per hour. It's like what Bezos makes. I was like, this was back a couple of years, but it was like, I'm like, what? What? It blew my mind. So now it's like, all right, I need to get to a point where I think it's like training your obliques. You'll get your abs in the middle if you work on those. So it's like, if I work on getting the jobs that have the right budgets, right architects, that will come along, be a lot easier to accomplish. And on the flip side, my margins will be a lot better. So it works around. You get me?
Yeah, I'm still camped out on why I used obliques as an example.
Same.
But, you know, that's...
The middle comes, man. It just comes together.
Obliques. I think that's over here somewhere.
Yeah, you work this out. This comes.
Is.
Googling it.
Oblique, is that when light doesn't pass through it?
There's the MIT version. The meathead of me just.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
All right, Tom.
Well,
We don't want to get you in more trouble.
I'm not in trouble. We're good. It's
You got to defuse that bomb.
Well, here's an example. I'll give you an example. I said, you know, normally their podcasts are 2 to 3 hours, and they booked out 3 hours. So I just want you to know that this could go to 3 hours. See, I said that 4 hours ago,
High anchor
with this tonight.
And we
So,
started a
high
half
anchor
hour
wins.
late, and so far we're 2 hours and 33 minutes in. So you're late.
Oh, I'm good, man. We're still good, but no, I think I love seeing the way you guys are doing things, man. I geek out on like marketing shit, and you know,
It's fun, man. It's really fun.
you know, I love seeing you guys tell a story, you know, through your Instagram and all that other stuff, and it really just, I think it builds trust, it builds the brand. You know, and I think a lot of us can learn a lot from the way you guys have approached it all. I mean, Nick, that's why I had you on my show back in the day, you know, and you were like, at the time, I think you were telling me like 70-80% or if not more of your business came from Instagram.
Yeah.
What is it now? Is it about the same or more?
I don't even. Everything is driven right through my website now.
Mhm.
It's crazy right now, the amount of traffic we have. But we started actually. We can go into a long conversation, but we started tracking it like from the analytics side, and 75% of our website traffic is driven through Facebook,
Really?
which is wild. But
Does
it's
that
like,
include Instagram? Because
no, that's what I thought.
Instagram. Okay.
No, so we were looking at it last week, and it was Instagram was like number 3. And it was
Really?
yeah, it was wild. We get a lot of, you know, it's usually they're driven through Facebook through probably ad trafficking, but then it's usually, hey, we follow you on, it's either Instagram or YouTube. We've
Okay.
seen your stuff. We'd love to work with you guys. That's usually how the conversation opens up. Rarely, I would say less than 10% of people that I talk to aren't following us and don't know who we are. And I would say out of that 10%, I would say probably 9 out of 10 of them are people that just aren't the right fit for us anyway.
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, the most of our traffic, I mean, in one way or the other, is coming strictly through social media.
That's crazy.
It's wild.
It's awesome.
Yeah. And
Wow.
it's, you know, just a few months ago, I was saying, we talked on here, I was like, I want to shift into more new construction. So I started changing the way I was marketing and what we were communicating that we do and who we are and what we do. And we literally have 12 new leads as of a month ago for all new builds.
Wow.
No, like 0 renovations. And it's wild to think, like, you know, people, you alluded to it, it's like people undervalue the way you market and marketing and that whole side of it. And this past year, I really put a very heavy focus on it. And I know that sounds silly because, like, I've always done social media,
Right.
but just from a much more professional standpoint, really understanding marketing approach and just every which way. And to see it react so quickly is wild to me. To see
Yeah.
the fact that I'm like, hey, this is the type of client I want, and then to change just a handful of things and automatically see that the reaction on the other side of it is crazy. Now,
There's
they're
that,
not.
there's
they're
that old
not
saying, what you focus on improves, right? So you
Right.
put your focus on it and it got better. I mean,
Right.
It's just, I don't know
and
how
it was
happens,
just,
but
yeah, it's really cool. And it's, you know, I feel, you know, I'm far from a professional at it, but I have a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah.
And, you know, and being able to build my team the same way is really cool. You know, that's how everyone that works for the, you know, with us has come to the company, all through social media.
wow. Well, it's, you know, you keep at it, Nick, you might have the success, you know, like Tyler's having on his TikTok account. So it's
True. I don't.
You know.
That might be an exaggeration, but I'm still trying to
couldn't
figure
get
out
in.
what TikTok is.
Yeah, I didn't get onto TikTok.
I just see people
Yeah.
posting stuff on Instagram that's
It's-
TikTok, and I'm like, why can't you just post this from Instagram?
Yeah.
That's what keeps going through my head.
mean,
I'm
it's
like, why
usually
does
pretty
this have
funny,
to be
but-
through TikTok?
Oh man.
Maybe I'll download it after this.
Tyler's gonna be up all night learning TikTok now. So
I'm gonna
it's-
try to.
That would be awesome.
Is that?
His
Do you
first
have
song
any
is gonna be
videos?
99 Problems.
Do you have any videos on your YouTube channel that'll teach me how, or no?
TikTok?
Yeah.
No. That
No?
ain't not happening, man.
Contractor Fight TV /TikTok.
You know, in a weak moment, I did open up a TikTok account.
Did you? That must have been pretty weak.
Yeah, it was very weak. I tried farting around with it, and yeah. And
Maybe
that
just
was 6
send
months ago.
send us the rough cuts from that and see if
Yeah,
we
we'll
can
review
have any
them.
use for them.
We'll use them for the promo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be good. Oh my, yeah, it was like me dancing and stuff. And
No.
no,
Definitely
I was
something.
gonna say it's a
No,
really
God,
weak
no.
moment.
I'll
God,
send you a
no.
photo of me playing golf if you send me a photo of you of you dancing.
Yeah.
I don't know what's worse. Like when I start to dance, like a song will come on, we'll be in the kitchen. I'll just start moving my body, and my girlfriend will just look at me and she'll go, no. She just says the word no. She goes, no. And I go, what do you mean? She goes, no. I'm like, okay. So it's like when I dance, my neck is connected to my hips or something. Like everything moves like this. Like nothing flows. So I can't dance. But
Well,
anyway,
Nick will show you how.
there
Yeah.
you go.
It's been a minute. We haven't seen
All right,
any
man.
stories.
Cool.
Well, thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Guys, I appreciate you having me. Keep it up, man. You're helping tons of people get better.
Likewise.
And it's good stuff. At the end of the day, we all want to be proud of what we're building. And, if I'm you guys, I'm holding my head high. So thanks for
Right
doing what
back
you're doing.
at ya.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
likewise,
you.
man.
Enjoy your night.
We'll stay in touch.
I will. Going to go eat dinner now. So we'll
Thank
see you guys. Have
See
a
you,
good
dude.
one. All right, bye.
We got a lot of reviews. Great podcast. I love the episode 121 with Christine Williamson. It's great to hear your insight on her take on the building envelope. I've been an architect for close to 30 years, and I still find things to learn every day. Keep up the good work. I'm going to pick one too. By Paddleworks. Wow, where to start? You have virtually surrounded your listeners with very successful people that challenge, motivate, inspire us to do better. It is a digital mastermind for the trades. The guests are great, and the hosts are always making the show better. I could have listened to Gary Katz and Spencer Lewis episodes on repeat. I've also had to turn the show off within the first 10 minutes on 3 occasions. The guest's inability to flow was like needles in my ears. I wonder if you'll try to guess which 3 it was. Nope. Modern Craftsman Trade School, can you email me the franchise application? The mental health episodes were fire. It takes a special type of person to do what we do, and we often burn ourselves out. I am so trying to come correct. My wife said podcast is the new word for men's meaningful conversation. Go Modern Crafts Monday. Thanks, Tyler, Nick, and John. Sincerely, Jason Parker. Always timely. Sean Patrick Rice. It's been a while since I've listened to the podcast, and I've been busy with work. I feel like I'm going crazy. I should have never stopped listening. The Modern Craftsman provides sanity to my life as a contractor. I've been catching up with all the episodes, and the one with Justin Fink had me... Why? Everyone's loving Fink.
The Finkster.
Had me thinking at the very beginning that I really should write you guys a review. Lo and behold, at the end, you were calling out for reviews and giving away 5 free hats. I haven't made it any further in the episodes, so I'm not sure if you gave out the hats yet, but I hope I'm in the running. Every time I know. Every time I listen to a new episode, there always seems to be some sort of tie-in with what I'm doing or what I'm experiencing, either on a job site or as a business owner. I'm set up a little bit more like Tyler as a one-man operation, and I'm slowly building up my business in order to have a few employees. You guys talk it real and straight, and I appreciate the honesty, and it makes me feel as though I'm not alone in the times I'm frustrated and just want to hang it up. Keep up the good work with the podcast. Your businesses and products for your businesses produce. Let's give Sean a hat. So Sean,
Email.
Maybe he's gonna have to listen to it.
yeah, he's gonna have to catch up to these. But when you do, we got hats left. It's all yours, brother. For everyone else, appreciate the reviews. What's up?
We gotta start thanking people for writing these long reviews because it's not easy to get onto iTunes.
No.
It's like it takes. You have to have a mission.
Where do you?
I don't even know where you find them to read them.
No, I mean you can scroll down. Tyler's
Oh
amazing.
yeah, it's a.
So you
right
scroll
review.
down past all the is how I do it. Podcasts that are available, and then below host, which we need to add our photos by the way. Like it says host, and it's all just dots.
Dang.
And it actually has dots for like all our guests as well.
I'm adding mine right now. How
It
do I
says
do
how?
I don't know.
It says rate reviews, and you can do it right there. You can tap 5 stars. You can write one. It gives you the option write a review.
Oh, it has, dude. It even has all the guests' names.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. All the images.
Yo. All right, we'll get that fixed up. Got a new headshot.
Do you?
Yeah.
COVID hair headshot?
Nah, right before COVID.
Oh, then it's not that new.
We did new ones too.
Well, I'm
Hand
trying to
holding
figure out
ones?
if I'm gonna leave the flow or not. My flow's getting.
I think you should. Yeah, keep
I
it.
love the joking. I love the joking around ones we have. Where's Benny?
Yeah, keep it. It looks good on you.
Thanks. See, look how blonde it is.
You do
put
sun
highlights in?
You do sun in?
Yeah, I sun in. Yeah.
Look at Benny.
Nice.
How amazing is that?
You get Benny on the dance floor too.
He is so funny. All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you guys listening. You know where to find us, and we will see you next week. And who do we get lined up next week?
It's a secret.
It's a secret. It's not.
I can't log into that, so I don't know.
It's Matt Troyer
Oh.
from Emergent. Dude.
Yeah, he's
that's
basically like
what's he weigh,
Forrest
40
Gump
pounds?
now.
Yes. Dude, he's running like a madman.
That's
but
what,
you know what I was talking?
yeah.
I want to talk to him about. That's what I actually want to talk about because it was driven from work, and that's
I
like
started running.
another.
Running from work?
I gotta fix my hair. Just mental health and stress and like having an outlet. So
I mean, that was a deep dive he took because he weighs like 75 pounds now.
he's
It's
crazy.
like
he's running like marathons on a Saturday morning.
like
it's crazy.
ultras. He's like doing ultras, I think.
Yeah. So stay tuned next week. We'll talk to Matt from Emergent.
That's his second podcast, right?
Yes. I
Yeah,
think.
we recorded one with him before.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, his
Before he ran.
former self. Yeah, that was
His former self,
pre-running Matt Troyer.
Pre-running.
Now it's Forrest Troyer.